Ali, 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 yeah. I praise Allah for these lessons. I'm striving to be the message, and I thank Allah for His blessings. Ali was the circle 7. I praise Allah for these lessons. I'm striving to be the message, and I thank Allah for His blessings. Ali was the circle 7. I praise Allah for these lessons. I'm striving to be the message, and I thank Allah for His blessings. Ali was the circle 7. I praise Allah for these lessons. I'm striving to be the message, and I thank Allah for His blessings. Ali was the circle 7. I praise Allah for these lessons. I'm striving to be the message, and I thank Allah for His blessings. Ali was the circle 7. I praise Allah for these lessons. I'm striving to be the message, and I thank Allah for His blessings. Ali was the circle 7.
Islamism without the schism. Want to rise upon the 7 within the circle of justice, mercy, love, and right, and give all praises to the great God, Allah, Father God, Allah, and honors to His holy prophet, honors to our holy prophet, Noble Drew Ali, Al-Hajj Sharif Abdul Ali, that is. We give honors to our Moorish kin once again, here, there, and everywhere. And therefore honors to all of you who are continuously honoring yourselves by being yourselves. But let us call forth our beloved goddess and queen, Sister Dendra Nee of Curta Bay, that she may come forth as we open up our hearts and mind, and she open up the way. Islam.
Islam, Islam, Islam. I am Dr. Dendra Nee of Curta Bay, but first let me rise and give praises to our great God Allah. I give honors to our holy prophet, Noble Drew Ali. I give honors to Act 1. I give honors to all my government officials. I give honors to our National Sister Grand Sheik for hosting this class this morning. I give honors to each and every one of you who are here with us in this class. And now let us come forth with our ancient comedian, Adept Moorish American prayer. And as we come forth, we ask that you open up your hearts and minds as we open up the way. Islam, Islam, Islam. Ya Allah Anu Haru Makunetaru. Ya Allah Abhed Haru. Ya Allah Ma'at Haru. Ya Allah Hotep Haru. Ya Allah Haru. Ya Allah Ma'at Herahuti. Ya Allah Awajet Jehuti. Ya Allah Pra'im Saket Pra'im Haru. Ya Allah Bamahuti. Hedges scepters ray up to Ali. Amen. Alisa, Alisa, Alisa. And that is to say in transliteration, family, O Allah, the Father of the universe, O Allah, the Father of love, O Allah, the Spirit of truth, O Allah, the Spirit of peace, O Allah, the Spirit of freedom, O Allah, the Spirit of justice. O Allah, you are my protector. O Allah, you are my guide. O Allah, you are my salvation by night and by day. O Allah, through your holy prophet. O Allah, Drew Ali. Amen. And now let us come forth before you with our divine constitution of Moorish America, salvation, our God, in unity. Act 1. The Grand Sheik and the Chairman of Moorish America are empowered to make law and enforce laws with the assistance of the Prophet and the Grand Body of Moorish America. The Assistant Grand Sheik is to assist the Grand Sheik in all affairs if he lives according to love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, and it is known before the citizens of Moorish America. The bylaws. Act 2. All meetings are to be open and closed promptly according to the Circle 7 and love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. Friday is our holy day of rest because on a Friday, the first man was formed in flesh, and on a Friday, the first man departed out of flesh and ascended unto his Father God Allah. For that cause, Friday is the holy day for all Muslims all over the world. Act 3. Love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice must be proclaimed and practiced by all citizens of Moorish America. No citizen is to put in danger or accuse falsely his brother or sister on any occasion at all that may harm his brother or sister, because Allah is love. Act 4. All citizens must preserve these holy and divine laws, and all citizens must obey the laws of the government, because by being a Moorish American, you are a part and parcel of the government and must live the life accordingly. Act 5. No organization of Moorish America is to cause any confusion or to overthrow the law and constitution of the said government, but to obey hereby. Act 6. With us, all citizens must proclaim their nationality, and we are teaching our people their nationality and their divine creed, that they may know that they are a part and parcel of this said government, and know that they are not Negro, colored folk, black people, or Ethiopians, because these names were given to slaves by slaveholders in 1779 and lasted until 1865 during the time of slavery. But this is a new era of time now, and all men now must proclaim their free national name to be recognized by the government in which they live and the nations of the earth. This is the reason why Allah, the great God of the universe, ordained Noble Drew Ali the Prophet to redeem his people from their sinful ways. The Moorish Americans are the descendants of the ancient Moabites, whom inhabited the northwestern and southwestern shores of Africa. Act 7. All citizens must promptly attend their meeting and become a part and a parcel of all uplifting acts of Moorish America. Moorish Americans must pay their dues and keep in line with all necessities of Moorish America, and then you are entitled to the name of faithful. Husbands, you must support your wife and children. Wife, you must obey your husband and take care of your children and look after the duties of your household. Sons and daughters must obey father and mother and be industrious and become a part of the uplifting of fallen humanity. All Moorish Americans must keep their hearts and minds pure with love and their bodies clean with water. This divine covenant is from your holy prophet, Noble Drew Ali, through the guidance of his Father God Allah. Now that this meeting has been opened according to Act 2, the Circle 7, and love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, we will now turn it over to our National Grand Secretary of State to read our chapter of the week. Islam.
Islam family, first of all, I want to rise, giving all praises to our Father God Allah, giving honor to our Prophet, Noble Drew Ali, the last prophet in these days and times. We want to give honor to our family online. We want to give an special honor to our scribes. Act 1, our host instructor, our National Assistant Grand Sheik, Moorish America, Dr. Shedawa Menti Emil Hatshepsut. This is Dr. Hatshepsut Tutankhamun Bey. I'll be reading our subject chapter for the week. Chapter 23, and also giving honor to our National Assistant Grand Secretary of State, Dr. Dendra Nia Kurtabay, for opening our meeting according to law. Chapter 23, Yahushua reveals the marriage law of man and wife from Allah. The law forbids adultery, but in the eyes of the law, adultery is an overt act, the satisfaction of the sensuous self outside the marriage bonds. Now, marriage, in the sight of the law, is but a promise made by man and woman by the sanction of the priest to live together until death. No priest or officer has the power from Allah to bind two souls in wedded love. What is a marriage tie? It is not what the priest may say or do. There is but one true marriage, and Allah alone can perform this marriage. It is the love of Allah that finds its way into the two, man and woman's hearts, and that is all ever to be. Your priests cannot cause this to be. Is it the promise of the two that they will love each other until death? Is love a passion that is subject to the will of man? Can man pick up his love as he would a gem and lay it down or give it out to anyone? Can love be bought and sold like sheep? Love is the power of Allah that binds two souls and makes them one. There is no power on earth that can dissolve this bond. The bodies may be forced apart by man or death for just a little time, but they will meet again. Now, in this bond of Allah, we find the marriage tie. All other unions are but bonds of straw, and they who live in them commit adultery. But more than this, the man or woman who indulges lustful thoughts commits adultery. Whom Allah has joined together, man cannot part. Whom man has joined together live in sin. But lo, I say that he who in the heart desires to possess that which is not his own is a thief in the sight of Allah. The things which men see not with eyes of flesh are of more worth than the things that men can see. A good name is worth 1,000 times a mine of gold, and he who says a word or does a deed that injures or defames that name is a thief. Upon the table of the law we read, "Thou shalt not covet anything." To covet is an all-consuming wish to have anything that is not right for anyone to have, and such wish in the spirit of the law is theft. Islam, Islam, Islam. And at this time, we want to turn the meeting back into the hands of our National Assistant Grand Sheikh, Dr. Shedu Amenti, Mohajet Shepsuel. Islam. Islam, Dr. Shahid, if you're speaking more, we can't hear you.
All right. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
We can hear you. It's like
Gratitude,
you're going a
Islamism
little
without
bit
the
in and
schism.
out.
Praise be to Allah. Let me make sure that this audio is good here. All right. What about now, Grand Secretary of the State?
That's a lot better. Gratitude.
Is it clear?
Yes,
Okay,
sir.
gratitude, Islam. Islam, Islam, Islam. Islam, Moorish America, want to rise upon the seven within the circle of justice, mercy, love, and right, and give all praises to the great God, Allah, Father God, Allah, and honors to his holy prophet, honors to our holy prophet, Noble Drew Ali, Al-Hajj Sharif Abdul Ali, that is. We give honors to our Moorish kin once again, here, there, and everywhere, and therefore honors to all of you who are continuously honoring yourselves by being yourselves. We give honors to our Grand National Seal. We give honors to our Grand National Emblem, National Flag, Divine Constitution and bylaws, and honors to all of you who are indeed a living manifestation and personification of everything that our Holy Prophet brought to exhume us as a nation. I want to welcome you to another Egyptian Adeptus Research Sultanate session. And I'm your host instructor, Dr. Shahid Imani Amohadi Shabazel. And my ancient Kemetic high name being the same as Dr. Shedu Amenti Mohajet Shepsuel. We have a powerful drawing, to bring forth in continuation of what it is that we've been already demonstrating in relation to dealing with the Comancheria, the Stoic Kion Comancheria, and different aspects of, how we are to come forth to bring about, these thoughts that are things that manifest forms. So we give praises to the great God Allah, honors to our holy prophet, the ancestors, that are aiding and assisting us with being able to bring forth these measures, and we just say gratitude with a divine attitude to be able to come forth and present these things to you. I'm going to lay a foundation. I want to share two particular videos, based on what we dealt with in the past and some shorts, And while I'm doing that, I'm gonna try to send this link out to a couple of our fam to make sure that they also got these things too in a few groups, so we can kind of get the numbers up. Remember, encourage our family to like the video, because that's what's gonna boost us and get us in the algorithm. The more that they like, share, and subscribe. So give me 1 second here. I'm gonna present the screen, and we'll present these videos real quick. Okay. Can you see this video that I have up here, Scribe?
Yes, sir.
Okay, it say our ancestors taught on the God code many ages ago.
Yes, sir.
Okay, gratitude. All right. Our ancestors taught on the God code many years ago. And this actually has to do with that which is in our DNA. Unbeknownst to many of us, it's a part and parcel of our complete makeup. When it comes to the elements and everything it is that we consist of, we are indeed descendant. And the key is being able to comprehend our origin and know where we come from. We hear a lot of people speaking of us coming from stardust. If you are familiar with the concept of what we call panspermia, panspermia speaks of a time where we were dealing with the origins of our element, so to speak, or us being in an elemental state and being brought to this special plane from the cosmos to planet Earth, so to speak. We were seeded by intelligent beings. So we need to go back to the origin and return to the source. Know where it is that we come from. And this is where we will gather our true expression of power. Peace.
It is therefore that the ancient Egyptian Neteru, being divine energies, went and continued to go through the same cycle of birth, growth, death, and renewal. Such understanding was common to all noted by Plutarch. The multitude of forces of nature known as Neteru are born, are created, subject to continuous changes, age and die, and are reborn. We can give example of the caterpillar that is born and lives and builds its own cocoon where it dies. Or better yet, transforms into a butterfly, which lays eggs, and on and on. What we have here is the cyclical transformation from one form state of energy to another. Another example is the water cycle, the water that evaporates, forming clouds that rain. During the stages of this cycle. It is therefore that the ancient Egyptian Neteru, being divine energies, went and continued to go. Such understanding was common to all noted by Plutarch. The multitude of forces of nature known as Neteru are born, are created, subject to continuous changes, age and die, and are reborn. We can give example of the caterpillar that is born and lives and builds its own cocoon where it dies. Or better yet, transforms into a butterfly, which lays eggs, and on and on. What we have here is the cyclical transformation from one form state of energy to another. Another example is the water cycle, the water that evaporates, forming clouds that rain back to the earth. It is an orderly cyclical transformation of energies in various forms. When you think of Neteru, not as gods and goddesses, but as cosmic energy forces, one can see the ancient Egyptian system as a brilliant representation of the universe. Philosophically, this cyclical natural transformation is similar to our saying: the more things change, the more they stay the same. So he says in scientific circles, it is known as the natural law of conservation of energy, which is one of Einstein's principles, right? Which is described as the principle that energy is never consumed, but only changes form. And the total energy in physical systems such as the universe cannot be increased or diminished. In other words, it can't be created nor destroyed. So that's the infinity of the concept through the cycles of Neteru. So now that you have this knowledge, and when we go into this demonstration here, and you see in translations such as Wallace Budge's demonstration, you get a title, Neteru as gods and male deities and so forth and so on. You see that he didn't have all the truth. Concept was all right, but it wasn't the full context of what was being demonstrated. See here, netter, the word, in the general use, the text of all periods for God and God here as well. Netter, which is to be or to become divine, to deify, more divine than divine ones, divine God, divine youth, divine power, divine one. So, these words deal with the divinity, that is basically manifesting, itself in the universe and creation. So when you look at elements that are referred to as the atom, or the quarks and the protons and the neutrons and electrons, all of these would have represented ancient principles, that are demonstrated in the Kemetic model of creation. So instead of looking at Shu and Tefnut, and Geb as gods and deities, you look at them as principles that pervade in the creation, and you have a better understanding. And you don't become confused and like, oh, they're worshiping many gods, by taking that Eurocentric narrative. So, I was looking at the word Adam, which is the root of the word Eden. And I did the gematria here. Remember, the mathematics never lie. So we know A is 1, the D is 4, N is 14. You add them up, you get 19. 9 and 1, that's 10. Bring the 10 together, isolate it from the 0. The 1 from the 0, you get 1, and that's the other A. So that's where I have, ADNA. You see? ADNA. And so as I began to do my research, I came across amorphous evolutionary DNA nanotechnology.
It's Dr. Shaheed, it's a lot of background noise.
Powers that, is exercised by the Elohim.
Islam, part itself.
And continue to go through the same cycle of birth, growth, death, and renewal. Such understanding was common to all noted by Plutarch. The multitude of forces of nature known as Neteruges age and die and are reborn. We can give example of the caterpillar that is born and lives and builds its own cocoon where it dies. A better yet, butterfly, which lays eggs and on and on. What we have here is the cyclical transformation from one form state of energy to another. Another example is the water cycle. The water that evaporates, forming as an orderly cyclical transformation of energies various. When you think of Neteru, not as gods and goddesses, but as cosmic energy forces, one can see the ancient Egyptian system as a brilliant representation of the universe. Philosophically, this cyclical natural transformation is similar to our saying. The more things change, the more they stay the same. So he says in scientific circles, it is known as the natural law of conservation of energy, which is one of Einstein's principles, right? Which is described as the principle that energy is never consumed, but only changes form. And the total energy in physical systems such as the universe cannot be increased or diminished. In other words, it can't be created nor destroyed. So that's the infinity of the concept through the cycles of Neteru. So now that you have this knowledge, and when we go into this demonstration here, and you see in translations such as Wallace Budge's demonstration, you get a title, Neteru as gods and male deities and so forth and so on. You see that he didn't have all the truth in. The concept was all right, but it wasn't the full context of what was being demonstrated. See here, netter, the word, in the general use, the text of all periods for God and God here as well. Netter, a netri, which is to be or to become divine, to deify, more divine than divine ones, a divine God, divine power, divine one. So, these words deal with the divinity, that is basically manifesting, itself in the universe and creation. So when you look at elements that are referred to as the atom, or the quarks and the protons and the neutrons and electrons, all of these would have represented ancient principles, that are demonstrated in the Kemetic model of creation. So instead of looking at Shu and Tefnut, and Geb as gods and deities, you look at them as principles that pervade in the creation, and you have a better understanding. And you don't become confused and like, oh, they're worshiping many gods. Not taking that Eurocentric narrative. So, I was looking at the word Adam, which is the root of the word Eden. And I did the gematria here. Remember, the mathematics never lie. So we know A is 1, the D is 4, You know, N is 14. You add them up, you get 19. 9 and 1, that's 10. Bring the 10 together, you know, isolate it from the 0. The 1 from the 0, you get 1. And that's the other A. So that's where I have, you know, ADNA. You see? ADNA. And so as I began to do my research, I came across amorphous evolutionary DNA nanotechnology. This is the type of science, you know, empowers that, you know, is exercised by the Elohim. You know, divine nanotechnology. So, you know, this is all dealing with geometry, how I'm coming up with this stuff. Looking at the garden. So in other words, we find out that the garden, the true garden is within you. The true fruits of spirit and divinity come through you, your DNA. You see? So that's why you see DNA, divine netter, Actons. Actons is the first to emerge from the waters in ancient Kemetic and form the mound. You know, then it says divinity of nature, which is atom, right? DNA stems to bring light to my expression here, family. That's all. You know, so especially when you talk about amorphous evolutionary DNA nanotechnology, study that. It gets deeper. You know what I mean? And then adenine. This is the one thing that distinguishes us from apes. And when you break these words down, you know, you come up with that which is equivalent to the 7 Elohim or Elohim. You know, this is what is working in us that don't work in the ape. The ape don't have this particular element working in it. Go look it up. That's how I was able to debunk that garbage when I had somebody talking about we come from apes. If we the same makeup, then they should have everything that we have. All 4 of those measures that make up the DNA. If they don't have them, you know, cytosine, adenine, you know, the guanine, and the thymine, if they ain't got all of it, then they can't be the same as you. They're another species. They even say dolphins are closer to us, but we don't look nothing like dolphins. Bananas is close to us too, but we don't look like bananas. So our people got to stop it. These people that talk about they scientifically literate, they the ones that's demonstrating, you know, that pseudo demonstration. And it's one thing to be eloquent in your own ignorance, but another thing to be just ignorant and don't want to accept the truth. So anyway, all that being said, just like I spoke of a few minutes ago, we should view these modern elements, if we compare them to the activity, you know, of certain things in the scientific model in the modern time, we can see the relation. So if netter, you know, would be an expression working at that special level, then that netter in ancient Kemet would be equivalent to what take place in the realm of the string theory. You're dealing with quantum physics when you go to dealing with them quarks. You know what I mean? You have a neutron that manifests out of that, the gluons and so forth and so on, and it builds itself all the way up into, you know, a mass of matter. But your next measure with the neutron, you know, and everything there dealing with the Neteru as well. Now, you see, you have the new. All of this is in the new, or the darkness of the universe, the cosmology. These elements, we just showed you the model. And then what manifests after that is the atom. You know, and this is Actons is in ancient Kemet. You see what I'm saying? So now you don't see these things as gods, you know, and pagan deities. You see them as elements. You see, this was demonstrated. So I'm showing you in Kemet, they was already demonstrating a scientific model, but our people don't understand it because they've been accepting the European interpretation, you know, this gods and goddesses concept. Nothing wrong with that because we use it now, we apply it to us. But what I'm saying is that they took you away from understanding that no, the nature is principle. Neteru are principles. Nu are principles. And I'm showing you according to my research, you know, how these things are unfolding. So out of the new, you know, comes Actons. And then Autum, out of that, you have Autum Ra. This is molecule action here, right? And then after that, formation, Meter, Ma'ati Ra. So matter naturally has a duality. You see, it has a high point and a low point in it, right? If it manifests, it is physical. So Ma'ati Ra means that there is order of truth and right in every element, principle element, so to speak, that will come into creation to create matter. That's why in us we have an orderly makeup, Ma'ati Ra. You see, not only the order of Ma'at, but the light of Ra, which is the spirit. You see, this is what I'm getting at. I'm saying that our ancestors, what they were speaking of, they wasn't speaking of no bunch of pagan deities. This was their scientific model during the stages of this cycle. It is therefore that the ancient Egyptian Neteru, being divine,
Islam, Moorish Ken. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
There go Brother Edwards Bay. Islam, and y'all heard that video pretty clear, right? It wasn't doing no choppy chop, was it?
No, sir.
Okay, gratitude. And before we go into our measure, I had gave those presentations a while back, but I would like to get y'all drawing. Do you see how we went through the gematria and pulled out various different demonstrations with that? More scribes.
Yes, sir. Powerful.
Okay. Um, it's a grand drawing just to be able to see it, you know, as it was. And like I say, and this is using, you know, the gematria and then going into the scientific expression and showing you how really under these so-called scientific models, you know, our teachings of our ancestors has been there all the while, but Rome is making this stuff seem as if they come up with it out of the clear blue sky, so to speak. You know what I mean? And you can see as we move up from even the level of the quarks and everything else, these words are again thoughts, you know, which are the DNA of the universe containing the code that gives form to our physical life experience. You know, just even in dealing with Neteru, you know, in and of itself, are you know, amorphous nanotechnology that's an actual scientific drawing that deal with the way, you know, the universe works, so to speak. You know, anytime you're talking about nano expression, so to speak. So they calling it this in this time, but our ancestors had their words for it, and it ain't strange that the words that are expressed correspond with what they like to call scientific model. You know, like spot on. Like you can't make this stuff up. You know what I mean? I didn't make it up. All I did is just plug in the gematria. You know, and this is what make these words of power. You know, before we move forward, you know, I want to see what my scribes had to say about what we just presented briefly. Islam, because we're gonna touch on certain measures that go even further. Islam, what about you, Grand Secretary of the State?
You mean have
Sister
you already?
Dendra. Either one of y'all. I heard her getting ready to come in there.
Go ahead, goddess.
Either or.
Okay. Yeah. The video, gratitude, that was powerful. And as I was looking, I loved the way you showed the DNA. Man, I don't have words to explain it, but I can remember asking the question when you said the Neteru, like Atun and the Netters, these are principles. And then when you show the little DNA, you know, the little balls and circles, you know, I can't really say how the picture was if I had it up there. You know, you just saw it, so y'all know what I'm talking about. But to look at it from that point of view, because see, when I was coming through, I used to ask the question, you know, was Atum and all them, you know, were they real? And it just dawned on me, just looking at the DNA, that's what it is, just looking at the DNA and how it forms. And I was asking the question, I say, is it real? I mean, are they real? And yes, they were real, but I don't think my family that I was asking, because I kept saying, I'm talking about real like me, you know, like, well, did they actually walk this earth, you know, like I am, you know, just breaking it all down. And they would say, yeah, but I really don't think that they understood like what you just broke it down, God man. But it really was, because the DNA is in me, and they did walk the face of the earth because it was in my DNA. It was in that, you know, it was in that DNA. So what I was asking, and they were saying, yeah, but I'm putting it together now. Yes, everything, whatever I was asking, yeah, it was true. But the main thing is, and the reason I know that maybe they didn't quite understand, because we were kind of like worshiping a tomb, a moon, you know, kind of, you know, giving honors to them and stuff like that. But and that's where a lot of people get confused, that you thinking that these gods are something outside of us, and we don't worship. It's not but one God. It's not but one God, and his, you know, we call him Allah, but he got many names, and it don't matter what you call. He got many names, and he got 99 that we're familiar with, but it's more than that. And so it depends on what area you in and what you call them at that time. But yeah, that makes me see where I was at that time and when I was asking that question. But the answer was yes. Islam. I hope I explained it right. Islam.
Yeah, well, Islam. Well, you know what it was is that our ancestors never really worshipped Atum in the form of being a deity. It
Right.
was those who came in that actually end up worshiping, you know, Atum, or worshiping the sun and worshiping, you know, different aspects of creation, because they didn't have knowledge when they came in. You remember, these were the Hyksos that came in.
Oh, yes.
That's where you'll find, you know, the admixture of people thinking it was us, because they calling the Hyksos the Egyptians when they took over. So just, you know, so they didn't know the way that we actually dealt with these things. And what we did is we expressed a measure of totemism, you know, and we dealt with reverence for the creator. We respected creation very well, you know, and even in Orthodox Islam, you know, Allah actually gives honor, you know, to the way of life of the Egyptians, you know, as that they were monotheists.
Right.
So if they were monotheists, that means they didn't worship many gods. That means they worship one God.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? They just had a grand degree of looking at it, and it was so pure in their monotheism, you know, to where people thought they were worshiping creation. Because they honored every aspect of it. Like, we don't do that to this day. Even though we have monotheism, most of the people don't know how to honor, you know, everything out there that they see. You see what I'm saying? Without looking at it as worship. You see what I'm saying? And so that's how pure our monotheism was in the ancestors' time. And like you said, these are real principles because they manifest through us. And that's what I tell people when they say, well, is Asa real?
Mm-hmm.
You know, is Offset real? Yeah.
Yes.
Allstar and Offset were real.
That's
you know,
right.
well, how they gonna live forever? Because they live through us.
Yeah,
And if the line was still going on right now, we were still having it passed down from father to son, mother to daughter, you know, and the children receiving that inheritance, then every child, you know, male child that's born from Allstar, you know, and Allstar male, you know, represents Allstar because the station remains.
Right.
You know, so that Allstar first as a child would be Heru. And then when that Allstar matures, that Heru matures into a man, then he becomes Allstar. And then his child becomes Heru.
There you
But
go.
on the end of the sister, the Offset, same thing with her. Her daughter, you know, would be in her form. You know, and so forth and so on. So yeah, these principles are real as they express themselves in the cosmological aspect. And we just showed you when we pulled up what we was talking about earlier, dealing with, you know, from Autumn, you know, to Nu, you know, to Autumn Ra, and then Ma'ati Ra. You know what I mean? Because when we come from what we say is the nature, you know, this is a singular expression. This is what a quark's, you can't see that with the physical eye.
Right.
You know, the quark activity is so fine when you deal with the Fibonacci and the string theory aspects of things. This is the line uniting divinity of the matter.
Would that
and then when you come, say that again.
Would that be the duat? Like what you saying?
But that's coming. All that is what comes out of the duat, so to speak.
Okay.
You know, because the duat itself represents the universe, so to speak. You know what I mean? The Amduat is what we call it. Right. You know, and then you have the Nu is what we are talking about, the womb.
Yes.
You know, so out of Neteru comes, you know, out of Neteru, which deal with nucleus and all that, this is Nu. And then when you come from the Nu aspect, as I explained, then Autumn manifests. You know, Autumn is the atom in ancient Kemet. Autumn is said to be self-created. You know, atom said to have self-sustaining abilities. So if you look at this here in Kemet, they was already teaching this. So how can Rome claim that they have it when we taught it already? You see what I'm saying? And that's what I was explaining in video. And then out of Autumn Ra, what manifests, you know, the hidden Autumn becomes manifest as Ra. And that's when the light dispels the darkness. You know, or the light, you know, as they call it, come forth, like in the book of Genesis, you know, Bereshit, the beginning, you know, when they said that the light, you know, came forth in, you know, from that darkness. It's the same drawing. You know, this is Amin Ra. You know, the hidden becoming manifest, and last but not least, what becomes manifest? Matter, you know, which is known as Ma'ati Ra. You know, this is when truth and right, you know, in the balance and everything is coming on the manifest along with that light that is manifested. That light is manifesting what was hidden in the darkness. You see, just like they say in the Piscean record, the light dwelled within the dark, but they comprehended it not. You see what I'm saying? And they don't know that matter actually means mother. A lot of people don't know that. You know, matter, and when you go into etymology, it means mother. You know, so this is where we actually dealing with coming forth on the level of protoplast as well. You know, when we get into the elemental aspect of things. So that's mentioned in chapter 1 of our Moorish Holy Quran. But all of these represent principles, and not just a bunch of pagan deities where you calling them gods and goddesses. You see what I'm saying? As they like to do it. You know, these were more principles. You know, the word God, we more apply to the concrete reality of us as we are.
Right.
You know, the God man and the God woman. You see, but when you get into the elemental aspect, no, we ain't making these a whole bunch of different deities dealing with no polytheism.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? Because all of them are the all that are one. Like Brother Mustafa Gadala says. Again, these are the thoughts that are the DNA of the universe containing the code that give form to our physical life experience. You see?
Islam.
So yeah, that's a powerful demonstration. So yeah, we give honors to your sister. You know, yeah, they are real. Like, are we
Yes.
real? We made up of them.
Yes, yes, they are
But
real.
if we're looking at it through the eyes of mythos,
Right.
nah, we're gonna be burned up from the start.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yes, yes. Islam.
Islamism without the schism. And go ahead, Sister Grand Secretary of the State.
Woo! I tell you, I just, there really are no words right now as far as I'm concerned. I'm just marveling at another layer being pulled off as far as comprehension and understanding. When I look at what was the first thing? Energy is never consumed. It only changes form. Infinity through the cycles of Neteru. That for me was such a powerful demonstration. And we can now see why we're dealing with the analytical formulas and how you're dealing with changing the numbers into letters or vice versa in reference to the universal order of things. And it makes sense when you're talking about going from it. I have to look this stuff up more, the quark, and that how this is you can't really see it, and how it evolutionizes to the physical or the matter. And we can see the high point and the low point, dealing with the higher self, lower self. This is from my understanding. And now we can see the orderly makeup when you see how it was put together. So for me, it's like pieces of a puzzle being put into place so that we can have a grander understanding of what our ancestors were demonstrating, which was on such a high ethereal level. Of course, going back to chapter 1 when it says finite mind can't comprehend things infinite. So if all we're looking at is our ancestors are just worshiping various aspects, like they worshiping the sun or they worshiping a bird or what have you, then you can't get a divine understanding until you let go of it coming from a strictly manifest level to be able to see the complete cycle, and how things are just changing form, but nothing ever dies, for lack of a better word. And we see that with the tree, so this is just a powerful thing. I know I've got to go back and do the research, get into the books that you were speaking about to gain further clarity, but this is very powerful. So gratitude, Morris Ken. Peace and love.
And gratitude and peace and love. And yeah, we most definitely are making it plain. And like when we go into the gematria, like I was showing earlier, and we start talking about the nanotechnology, like I said, that's a real scientific measure. And I found this out after that, the acronym was demonstrated, And what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna try to pull this up real quick to give you some background on this, because a lot of this stuff, like I say, I'm pulling it out of the gematria. When I pull the gematria, it's manifesting, this deep scientific connection, that I didn't even know was on the manifest. Let me see if I can pull this up real quick. I want to go back to the particular one we did, and then I'll pull up that other one and go deep into it, because all of this is relevant to what we're talking about right now. Just give me 1 second here. Okay. I'm going to pull this up, and then I'm going to share the screen. Okay, let's see here. I just got to get the proper. Okay. 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 Let's see. I hate when this thing go back and type into what I'm typing. Okay. There it is right there. Okay. And this is where I be saying, like, I be giving a lot of keys, but they go deeper than what I be giving. You know, it's just too much to try to explain in one round, so to speak. But we giving the keys so that our family can do a deeper dive in the research, so to speak. Okay, so I'm gonna share this real quick. And I was talking about amorphous evolutionary DNA nanotechnology. Now, somebody that didn't know no better, I think I just made this up. You know, no, I was dealing with the gematria and pulled up the acronym because I do my research when I come up with these things. And this is actually scientific paperwork right here, family. For those who may think that I made up the term. No, I didn't make up the term. I just found it through, you know, like I was speaking of. It says amorphous and evolutionary DNA nanotechnology explores novel conceptual directions, applications for DNA nanotechnology, which are based on intelligent DNA program soft hybrid materials and utilization of evolutionary principles for the optimization of nucleic and acid nanocomponents. You know what I mean? So this thing go into amorphous DNA technology first aims at the creation of cell-sized DNA program microgels, DNA cells with sensor, computation, and communication and actuator function. All this is Neteru, you know, at the cellular level. Interacting DNA cells will be arranged in the chemical cell consortia and artificial tissues using micro fluidics, pardon self, and micro manipulation and 3D bioprint techniques. So these people are working, you know, at the cellular level, dealing with certain measures, you know, playing around with the Neteru. Let's just say it that way. The Neteru. Spattily distributing chemical circuits and will then be utilized to establish collective behaviors such as quorum sensing, pattern formation, self-differentiation within these consortia and tissues. The approach will be further scaled up to produce multi-component DNA gel compositions that become active and differentiate upon mixing. And evolutionary nanotechnology techniques derived from directed molecular evolution experiments will be applied to optimize the arrangement of functional nucleic acids on DNA and RNA nanoscaffolds. Compartmentalization and microfluidics will be utilized to screen for nucleic nanostructures capable of structure formation. So they're trying to see on how to use the building blocks of creation to build some of their own creation. You know, they've been doing it with food and everything, if you really look at it. You know, they're making a lot of this stuff that you thinking that's grown naturally. In laboratories, an evolutionary approach, they want to play the God. And you know, some people get egotistical, you know, with this. An evolutionary approach would then be applied to amorphous DNA cells, resulting in DNA cell population which contain individuals with different molecular identities. This is why they saying they can change your eye color. They can change your nose and your future seeds that come from your lineage. You know, they can code them and encode certain things in them. They plan, this is a dangerous process though, really. The proposal will pave the way for the creation of macroscopic materials with DNA programmed intelligence, resulting in novel applications for DNA technology and molecular programming in diverse fields such as environmental and biological sensing, biocatalysts, smart adaptive materials, and soft robotics. So these people, like I say, they trying to play God. You know what I mean? And I just found this, like I said, through my research in dealing with the gematria. You see, they playing with the Neteru. You know, this is another one, National Library of Medicine. These are scientific drawings here. Look at here. Watch this. DNA nanotechnology leverages the specificity of Watson-Crick-based paired and inherent attributes of DNA, enabling the exploitation. That's the problem. How you going to exploit God? But anyway, it says of molecular characteristics, notably self-assembly in the nucleic acids, to fabricate novel, controllable nanoscale structures and mechanisms. In the emerging field of DNA nanotechnology, DNA is not only a genetic material, but also versatile multifunctional polymer comprising deoxyribonucleotides and facilitating the construction of precisely dimensioned and precise shape two-dimensional, 2D, three-dimensional nanostructures. DNA molecules act as carriers of biological information, with notable advancements in bioimaging, biosensing, showing the profound impact, clustered regulatory, regulatory, interspace, short, palindromic repeats. And then it says CRISPR, impact, associated system Cas, constitute self-defense mechanisms employed by bacteria and archaea to defend against viral invasion. The discovery of modification in various functional Cas proteins coupled with identification increasingly designable, programmable. Man, this is basically almost creating a Black Panther suit. Have you seen, the concept of, vibranium in Wakanda? It's the same type of drawing that these people out here trying to play with.
It's
And so it's go ahead, Grand Secretary of the State.
Yes,
There's
sir.
a lot behind this stuff.
Were you changing the screens as you were reading?
Yeah, it didn't change.
No, we were still on that original screen you had.
Okay. I just really went to the next link and I'm gonna show it to you real quick right now. I'm changing it up right now so you can see the entire screen, and then I'll show you where I went. So yeah, this is it right here, and it came right up under the bottom of that other link, which was the top link here. That just went in this one right here and started on another one. And again, that came from the National Library of Medicine. Yes, ma'am. And so it's the same. You can go on down here and it just goes. These are different scientific journals dealing with this stuff, but I'm just showing how these people are playing with, the DNA, so it's just, you ask the question, what is DNA nanotechnology? For example, and the AI and the computer going to pull it up, and go into Wikipedia, and it'll give even another measure. It's the design and manufacture of artificial, it's design and manufacture of artificial nucleic acid structures for technical uses. So they basically, you can say, remixing what is already in DNA to come up with their own drawing. In this field, the nucleic acids are also used as non-biological engineered materials for nanotechnology. And that's how they coming up with this different, like I say, creating, animals and stuff. Stem cell is dealing with all this stuff. Rather than, this is how they talking about building new organs for the people with a new heart or a new, they can go into the body of one if they really want to, and build your original structure where you don't have to have a donor. But it says rather than as carriers of genetic information in living cells, researchers in the field, they really completing measures dealing with computers and all that right there, all for your DNA. Researchers in the field have created static structures such as 2- and 3-dimensional crystal lattices and nanotubes, polyhedra, and the arbitrary shapes and functional devices such as molecular machines. It says DNA computers. The field is beginning to, look at that, the field is beginning to be used as a tool to solve basic science problems such as in structural biology. That's what I was talking about, biophysics, including applications in X-ray crystallography, nuclear magnetic resonance spectroscopy of proteins to determine structures, potential applications in molecular scale electronics, nanomedicine are also being investigated. So they done finally figured out that everything, that you're looking for to heal you is actually already in you. So this is what it's about. So when I gave my little drawing over here, in this little area here, like I say, all my information came from, dealing with the German. You see right there, when I came up with the ADNA, I went to researching it, I found the amorphous evolutionary DNA nanotechnology. Now, when you go back to, the aspect of dealing with Kemetic, and we dealing with the DNA, well, we can see this Neteru. They say gods, male deities. This is the way your boy demonstrated. We know that these represent principles, even though they're using the term God. You see what I'm saying? So yeah, this is definitely dealing with the DNA aspect, the divine ones, divine God, divine power, so to speak, and this is just going into the definition, of the concept of DNA and so forth and so on. Divine neta altum, divinities of nature, Adam, divine nature of all them was my little acronyms I broke down. The adenine, as you go, that's the A, that's the D, that's the E, that's the N, that's the I, the N again, and then the E again, and they add up to 7. Adenine. Something again that the ape really don't have as we have it. You know what I mean? So this is coming from the 7 Elohim right there, working at the DNA level. And you look at the root, even in the word ID or the ad, the first people that are mentioned, that word ad is in the word Adam, Cadman, or Adam, Eden, Adam. It's all dealing with the first or the beginning. So we can't make this stuff up. And when I came up with this here, I added the 4 and the 5 and the 1, and then I got the 10, and then I added the other portion on there. But yeah, it's powerful, Morris King, when we really get into the science behind it, and especially when we got into talking again about this portion here. Let me get up to it. Right here. When we was talking about this portion of evolving out of the concept of dealing with netter as it relates to neutron, Neteru as it deals with the nucleus formation, Autum as atom, Autumn Ra again as the manifestation of the molecule, as they come forth, and that's the material need to come up with the Ma'ati Ra, which is matter. These are the different stages: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then everything else manifests on the 7 out of that. You see what I'm saying? So yeah, this is a powerful demonstration. Now you can even see it here: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then everything manifests out of that, because everything comes from the matter that you see, but at the root it's the spirit. Going back to the netter. Remember, string theory is another drawing that we was dealing with when we talked about stoicheion, because it speaks of the sequence of a line in things manifested. These letters, they are manifesting words, and these words express themselves in the forms which manifest things. So yeah, that's what we were touching on right there. And then before I go further, because I do have another measure I want to speak on before I go deep into our lesson, but all this is relevant to what we talk about. It, like you said, unveil layers of information. I want to see if our brother Marvin Edwards Bay have something that he want to say. Islam, brother Marvin Edwards Bay.
Islam,
Yeah,
can
we
you
see
hear
you.
me? Islam, can you
Yeah,
hear
we
me?
can hear you. Yes, sir. We can hear you, grand man.
Yeah, I don't want to interrupt the class because I did get in here late and my apparatus seemed to malfunction every time I get on a Zoom call. But yeah, very powerful information that you're bringing on the manifest. Um, And I can only, and hopefully, when I look at this again on the playback, that because when I first came on, you were coming in choppy, or at least on my apparatus, and so hopefully if I view it again, I'll be able to see it in its completeness. But yeah, very powerful. Gratitude for all you do. Islam?
Gratitude,
So
Islam.
before I go,
It's
I'm sorry, before I go, praise Allah and highest honor to his prophet and honor to Morris American government and everything that is Morris. And to this class, and to you, God, man, and to the Moors on the council, and on the, and all the Moors that's possibly in the audience. Yeah, I see them on the audience too. So gratitude, God, man. Peace and love.
Gratitude, peace, and love. All right, goddesses and queens.
Islam, I just had a question based upon what has been brought forth thus far. We know that Rome has been speaking about the minute particles that have the potential to now enter into the bloodstream and create havoc and damage dealing with the organs behind plastics or what have you. Okay. So knowing Rome and looking at positive aspect and also the negative aspect, I just wanted to ask your thoughts on that, because we know all of this stuff came out of Kemet. Okay. So
Oh
what
yeah. That's what I was. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. They studied these things to the measure where they can replicate stuff. That's why if you look at certain things, like for example, you got to be careful with what you eat because microplastics are most definitely there.
yeah,
I asked you to do an experiment. I was talking to Marvin Edwards Bay about this, because normally I get almond milk. You know what I mean?
right.
And at one time I had got some like 1% milk because it was the only thing I can grab. It was a late night draw and they didn't have no almond milk, from a little, the little what you call it, the 7-Eleven stores.
Mm-hmm.
And basically I got that demonstration and I left a little bit in a cup, just didn't finish drinking it or whatever. And man, I went back. Milk normally clump up, right?
Right.
If it sit up, it wasn't a good few couple of hours. This thing formed into like a hockey puck,
What?
like yeah. And it was like a perfect circle. And you can see the sheathing over it shining looked like a big pill.
Oh my goodness.
And it was floating on the liquid, which I would say was water, I guess. And it was probably about 1.5 inches thick. And it was that solid. And I'm like, if it's doing that just in a cup in that amount of hour, then imagine what it do if it entered the bloodstream.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? And so Rome is creating certain things. So that milk ain't even real milk, if you ask me.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't have no sour smell really to it. And then if you notice, a lot of that stuff lasts longer in the refrigerator than it normally lasts.
I bet.
Average milk. Yeah. It's, and then if you look at certain cereals, that's why I've been stopped eating them really, unless I can find some that may have a little whole grain wheat, but you really want to check that stuff. Like a lot of that stuff, they got them flavors on though. And I read these boxes all the time when I'm looking for certain things, so now I know what to get when I get where I get, and I don't, just in case I have a little quick snack I want to eat. And it may be like some, shredded wheat type of demonstration if I want to, but I make sure that I read that label because, a lot of time when you read label on a lot of that stuff, it say bioengineered. See, people think about GMO, but when they talk about bioengineered, this is dealing with the same stuff we talking about now, nanotechnology. So they learn how to manipulate these things. And what it is a replica of what used to be, real food, so to speak. So now they can just print it up, get the CAD machine, and come up with the materials that they want to produce and program it in there, and then it produce, this stuff instead of making it from real elements.
Mm-hmm.
You see what I'm saying? Like normally cereal might be made from real wheat and different stuff like that right there, barley or whatever they put together, and oats or whatever. But now, they are taking things with the CAD machine and they can put the code in there based upon what make up, in the scientific model, wheat, instead of having a real wheat plant, and just program it in the system and deal with nanotechnology and then give it to you as real food. And then you wonder why you got people dying, from a lack of nutrition.
Right.
Because you may replicate, something, but you can't replicate the nutrients that's in the real sources that come from nature. So yeah, they doing research, and even to the extent based upon studying us, and knowing what it is that cause ailment to us or bringing about illness. You know how many young brothers, are coming up with different ailments and, being malnourished and all that stuff right there. And it's really based upon stuff we taking into our body, and they know it's going to be hazardous to us. They know our bodies can't, because they never studied it. So there's a level of a secret biological warfare that's going on. Yeah. So yeah, you ain't thinking wrong, Grand Secretary of the State. Islam, Brother Marvin Edwards Bay. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. If I may. Yeah, I mean, like, I think they took off the manifest a lot of those brothers that was telling us about this food. I mean, the prophet said it. The European food is just plain poison. I mean, ain't no joke, And Dr. Sabi, what's the brother Dick Gregory? I mean, like, all these brothers was telling us about this food. I mean, like, they didn't tell you everything, but once you start studying, and you say, oh, I see why they were saying don't eat this or don't eat that. Because this is what's going on. These people are trying to take us off by the count or control us, And they even go further. We talk about, I was looking at, not to take away from the class, but I was looking at Bernie Sanders, and he's talking about Trump, Elon Musk, and Zuckerberg. 3 men own half of the wealth, you know what I'm saying, in the world. I mean, like, what do you think they're gonna do with that?
Well, that's the whole goal. They trying to take it and run off with it. That's why they destroying the system and taking away the jobs. Right. Take away the jobs, and think about it. Every time they eliminate jobs, that means the corporation get to rake away all the money they done made from the people too.
Yes, sir.
So that's the biggest scamming in history that they doing. And when they get done with it, then they drain this system dry. Watch they run off into the sunset and leave everything in a shamble. That's the plan. But yeah, we got to look at it. World Health Organization, when we get into that aspect of things, that's the reason why things going on as it is. Because if everybody start eating natural, then basically they're going to cure themselves of certain things and they don't need the doctor. So it's causing a strain on that system. So now we're going to create some nanotechnology to make them think that they eating, in a holistic way. And all the while we done grow this so-called holistic food, and it ain't going to give them what they need. So really you got to grow your own food to really get what you need, because we have vegetables and fruits that's on the shelf, and a lot of them come from bioengineered technology as well, truth be told, even though they passing it off as a real orange, a real apple. Mm-hmm. And we know some of this stuff don't taste like it used to years ago.
Especially
even before we stopped eating the meat, if people was dealing with the meat back in the day, we noticed years ago that hamburger meat don't even fry like it used to. It don't even smell like it used to. You know what I mean? I know before I stopped eating them, I noticed all that. Mm-hmm. The way chicken would cook when I used to eat it. You know what I mean? That stuff wasn't cooking right. And I'm talking about this like 15, 20 years ago. But that's how long it been since, I really, ate that type of stuff, you know. But yeah, you gotta be careful because they can put everything in a laboratory and grow it from, these nanocells. And these nanocells that they dealing with again ain't nothing but replicated measures, and they can never be the real thing. But think about it. In a system where, they done depleted the earth so much so, and they got the supply and demand. If you can print this stuff out in a computer and get away with it, then the people that's making money off of this right here, not only do they get money, but they also in partnership with Big Pharma. And then basically they gonna get their money when you end up being, like I say, ill as a result of consuming these things. So we really got to get serious about producing that thing that come from ourselves, and also make sure the seeds ain't been bioengineered, because this thing is serious. Islam, and I think our sister Curta Bay was trying to get in there as well.
Islam. Yes, this is a powerful class this morning, and it is not strange that we are talking about what we are talking about. But I want to go back. The first thing I wanted to mention when you were showing us the DNA and stuff, yeah, they have taken that and they have they using it for the negative. They can make another person. They can make another person. I mean, there's information out there that talks about how, they can make another person and all of that stuff. Because see, they then took our teachings and studied it. And they know how to recreate another person. But what we did some research on that, and what we found out was whenever they do that, like say, like if they clone somebody or make another person or have their people, because see, their people, they got us. I mean, their women are not reproducing like we are. And so say whenever some of their women have a baby, they go through what they call it. I forgot what it is, but how they got to go through these steps where that offspring that's born to that female, it'll have to do the same thing she did to get pregnant and to reproduce, because they can't reproduce. And like we are saying, this they taking it and using it for the negative, and you can see the flaws in it, because see, like you said, they want to be the God, but they are not God. They can't never be the great God of the universe. And then, like I said, it's not strange that you're talking about the food, because the goddess Dr. Sayanati had sent me a link, and this guy was on there talking about the food and stuff, how we need to start growing our own food and things of this nature. But when you mentioned about that almond milk, and now me and my son was talking about it yesterday, he was talking about the almond milk. When you and that's what I got to get back to doing. Read the label, and on that almond milk, the one I love, what is his name? But anyway, it's almond milk, the diamond. I think it's diamond. They made like that was the best almond milk. But when you read on there, it says enriched, and when anything is enriched, they have taken out the nutrients from that, and then they have put in the artificial thing. So I'm not getting the nutrients that I think I'm getting from my almond milk. And we used to talk about that when I was in the Piscine area, even with the rice. He was talking about how this affect our health and family. Like I say, read the labels. He was talking about the rice, how when you get rice, if it say enriched, they then took out the real thing that's gonna help you and it be good for you, and then they didn't put something in there that's harmful for you, and it causes you to keep wanting more. You want to eat more and more of it, like these pastas and stuff, and the rice and stuff, and it's causing our people to have diabetes and I'm learning. I'm like, wow. And but there are There's this rice called Mahama, but anyway, it's a jasmine rice. If you look on the label, it just says the ingredient in there is just jasmine rice. So you want to look for the whatever's in that product. You want to know what's in there, and one of the main things to look for, if it's enriched, they done took out the good stuff and put in the bag. So that ain't gonna do you no good. So I'm telling my son, I say, oh my goodness, I got to change my almond milk, because no wonder, you wonder why you doing all this exercises and stuff, and ain't nothing happening. You doing what you're supposed to do because you got to read the label. That stuff that they putting in there, it causes you to gain weight. It causes you to want to drink more. You want more of the rice. You want more of the pasta because it's enriched. That enriched ingredients that they didn't put in there, it makes you want to eat more and more and more of it. And that's why you had the cravings and stuff. I was like, oh my goodness, this is powerful. And here you are coming talking about this morning and talking to our people out there who are listening to us. And family, spread this, share this video, because this is some powerful information here. The Holy Prophet is sending down his supreme laws to us, letting us know this food, you don't know what you getting. And last but not least, I saw another thing where they was talking about how they was grinding up. What was it? They was grinding up this stuff in your food, and you don't even know it. And forget about that. Who them people that inspect the food? I can't think of them right now. But anyway, y'all know who I'm talking about. They inspect the food and let you know if it's safe or not. They just letting that stuff pass by. They don't rely on them to expect to tell you if that food is right or not. They already say we are eating food that's been other things that's been grind up in there. They say, like, you think you eating vegan food. Say no, they didn't grind up, and there was a name for pork. They say you think you eating vegan and stuff, but that's pork in that, and they didn't grind it up in there. But you think you getting vegan. Say, but you ain't no vegetarian because you still eating meat. They didn't grind it up in there. So family, I tell you, we just got to be diligent about what we are putting in our bodies. And that's what I wanted to share. Grand Class God, man, peace and love. Let me share peace and love. Islam.
Yeah, peace and love. And a lot of people don't know, that think they be eating stuff like chicken, and they put real meat on there. Yeah, a lot of that's ground up pork, in that stuff. Different aspects of even certain jello, you got to be careful with certain gelatin because it has, pork in it. You know what I mean? So it's a lot of things out there that they eat. They try to slide it in there on you, gonna make you eat pork. What else was it that had that pork in there? Yeah. I remember I used to get them whatchamacallit, the dollar, I think it was Tostito pizzas, they would have, and it would be the hamburger version. They start putting seasoned pork in that. I read the label, what in the world? And that was years ago they did that. And it's different stuff, man, that they would do. They definitely be putting that stuff in certain things. So you got to be careful. Even in the toothpaste you brush your teeth with, it be having certain, animal stuff in it. And that's why all this is coming just from studying now. This knowledge is coming from dealing with gematria. And that's why I said if we have proper knowledge of the gematria, we can heal ourselves. And look, this nanotechnology went from touching on the DNA in the body into understanding. Also, after the Grand Secretary of State asked the question, which we willing to go there anyway because thought is the cause of it all. We understand that these people use this stuff. It's a two-edged sword. It ain't just enough to study and look at the benefit of it. Let's study and see how we can manipulate somebody else's DNA and RNA, activity to bring about a desired, result. This is the mad scientist, in Rome, unfortunately, so you got to read what it is that you are taking in and, try to shop, in quality place. I'm going to tell you a lot of this stuff really end up being what they say it is. It's the most expensive stuff, unfortunately. You go in there and you look at certain things that you take in the body, amino acids. They want $60 for a whole bottle because it's the real deal. You understand? And so they know the average person say, man, I ain't finna pay that much. They gonna get the knockoff version, and it ain't gonna be what in the real deal. The knockoff version may say $5-6. But the real deal, they want to put $70-80 on the bottle or something that they know will help you. Same thing when you go into the grocery store and they got certain breads, that's better for the body. But they're gonna charge you dang near $10 for that. And they give you that garbage for $3 or $4. You see what I'm saying? So we definitely got to know what we putting in our bodies and understand the quality of the food that we have in order to get the desired result of the body, so to speak. Because even at a certain level, when you deal with putting protein in the body can only process so much protein. And the lesser that you take, the better the body relates to it. And it's good to have plant protein in most cases, if especially when you get up in age. Like a lot of people don't know, and I ain't been able to do this yet, but in due time, I'm gonna definitely start drinking, H2O infused water. It's more expensive, but it's better for the body because it oxygenates the body. All that stuff they do with reverse osmosis, it don't really cleanse the body properly. It actually stripped the body of the nutrients, and you end up going to the restroom more than anything. And that's why you end up dehydrated. You see what I'm saying? You think you hydrating the body, but you end up over hydrating, and you strip the body of its nutrients because it's just gonna run straight through you. And my father, he drank a lot of spring water. They got a well out there, and I'm supposed to be going out there to him when I get a chance to get me some big jugs of it. He loved boasting about his water, and it tastes real good too. So we got to learn too that some of the best things that we can eat to hydrate the body, for example, is certain fruits. Like watermelon is real good, but in excess, it can be harmful. You just got to eat it in its holistic form and not be juicing too much. Ain't nothing wrong with making smoothies, but you want to really eat the whole fruit, in the flesh of the fruit, so to speak, instead of just the interior aspect of it. Because if you eat, the flesh along with whatever else come with it, then that's where your fiber come from, that regulate certain things and allow your body to break down the natural sugars in a proper way. So, and I've been doing this research and really looking into this. So, I don't put anything in the body. I really be looking. It's a lot of things that have low glycemic index, stuff that have low sugar, and you still got to be careful because they have hidden things in certain things. I like that one drink that I be getting. It's called Perform X, and I'm gonna show you the ingredients in it, and it keep the body. Let's see here if it'll bring it up. Let's see. Okay. The main thing that you got to do is really you got to have your energy right. when it comes to them. There you go. And this is actually called water. Some of the best tasting water that I have is like it's really a it's coconut water is what it is. I'm trying to see. I want you to see the ingredients in it. It ain't got no it's crazy though that they done come up with all this different stuff, cause so much stuff done been put out there to make you think you're getting the right thing in the body, but you don't. Hold up, let's see here. Trying to get it to where y'all can see what's in it. It's better than any Gatorade or Powerade you can get. Okay, here you go, right here. Let me go out of here. What? Here you go. Okay, so let me share my screen now. Yeah, okay. Okay, there we go, right there. Share. Okay. Get out of there. All right, let me hit that. Okay, so y'all see this right here, right? My screen sharing right now?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. And I be drinking these right here. You see what they got in them? See the caloric intake? But look at the amount of fat in them. You ain't got no fat in them, right? You ain't got no sodium in them. You got total carbohydrate, 2 grams, 1 gram of sugar, and it includes 0 added sugar. But then you got all the electrolytes that you need, your potassium, you know, your vitamin A, vitamin E, vitamin B6, B12, and magnesium. You know, and then it goes into, you know, the things they put in there. And you see really it's, you know, filtered water, coconut water from concentrate, malic acid, potassium, phosphate, magnesium, citrate. Basic stuff that you really put in the body from supplements. But my main thing is that's the closest you're going to get to something to where you can drink something that tastes good without drinking all that sugar stuff. You know, they taste real nice without drinking that stuff that's going to harm the body. You know, but you got to pick and choose. You got to pick and choose for what it is you eat. Because nothing that they put out there you can guarantee. Go ahead, sister.
I was asking what was the name of it?
It's actually Perform X Hydrate is what they call it.
Perform X. Okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna show you another picture of it.
Okay.
I want to see. I think I'm sharing the whole aspect of my screen. It should go back to it. I show you the front of the bottle. It's Perform X Water is what they call it. You know, and it's the same size of a Powerade or Gatorade, and these are flavors that they have. And that's another thing. It's caffeine free. You know what I mean? That's a whole nother thing. This is your energy drink. You know, in fact, I'm gonna pick me some up later today. But you can't beat that. The main thing, you got to drink something that's putting putting electrolytes in your body. It ain't just safe to drink water now, you know, because it could be stripping you of your nutrients. You want to make sure you putting something in your body anytime you drink. If you're gonna drink something, you got to make sure that you put something in the body. And like I said, you can go and eat your fruits and vegetables, because I do that all the time. Some of the dishes that I be making over here, like I might get me some zucchini squash, you know, regular squash, and then I take like cabbage, and shred it up like I want it, some broccoli, Brussels sprout, and I put them in there and let them, boil for a little bit to soften them up. And then I take some olive oil and do like a stir fry. Talking about some good eating, man. Goodness gracious. You got to be creative when you're eating with this vegan thing. Sometimes you can get burnt out if you don't really know what you want to eat. You know what I mean? So you got to make your vegetables your rice. And they have certain rice out there that you can get, like wild rice, black rice as they call it, and all that right there. That's good too. Quinoa, it's cool to eat that type of stuff. Main thing, if you're eating any type of rice, it's the portion that do the most damage. Because I remember back in the day, you have a big old plate of rice, with small little thing of vegetables and a few beans here, when it should be the opposite way around. A little small portion, not even real big, just enough to really sprinkle the rice, as if it's like a seasoner, so to speak. You don't put a whole bunch of seasoning on nothing unless you're crazy. But you just sprinkle the rice in whatever you're doing, and don't even have the rice piled up, where it's more than what can literally fit in the palm of your hand. That's all you really need if you're going to eat it. In that way, it'll keep your body from being so starched up and spiking. But if you eat good whole grain rice, it's good anyway. It's better anyway. You know what I mean? Frozen bread is actually better than bread that sit on the shelf, like that Ezekiel bread and all that right there. The body deal with it better. You can freeze some of your bread, and it's effect that the bread has on the starch, but it definitely have a different effect if you eat bread. But there's different things you can try. But I want to go further into our measure. But it ain't strange, like I said, that we went through all of this that we have went through. And this is coming out of our knowledge of dealing with the Kemetic, the Stoicheion Kemetic. I'm telling you, it has an effect on everything. The Neteru, we dealing with words of power. So within our knowledge, there's a power that we can be knowledgeable of the things that can either heal us or the things that can unalive us, as they would say. So Islam. Before we move forward, is there anything our scribe would like to say any further? Okay. Well, all right. Well, let me do this right here then. I'm going to share my screen, and we're going to get further into the measure. I do have a drawing I want to touch on from the other thing I gave in presentation. And let me go back to my TikTok. Now, why I can't find them videos in my shorts? Because they should be there. I'm having to go into my little TikTok page to pull this stuff up. Okay, let's see. There's something I really want to point out here. Okay, let me go ahead and do this here. I got to share the screen real quick. Yeah, once I share this screen. Okay, there we go there. I think I can hit it there. Yeah, we'll just hit entire screen. That way we make sure we share it. Okay, share it here. All right, and go back over here. Okay, y'all can see my screen, right, Morris King?
Islam.
Islam. So y'all remember I did this a while back. We was dealing with our God code, and I played this one earlier. But if you look into what was put here, this was even before I started dealing with the God code. I was dealing with the concept of the words, you know, and how they come forth in what we call Arabic and the Canaanite, or what they call Hebrew. And I was showing their connection to the Kemetic word. We were doing our strong word, you know, like the Torah, you know, he who commenced creation in the being as the giver of life. And then I went into the roots of this, you know, this is the Kemetic root. This is the Mudaric Arabic root, because Mudar come from the Kemetic language, just like the Canaanite come from the Kemetic language, you know, but he who commenced creation of being as a giver of life. But then when we come into the derivative word, we always say this is the cause coming from the Kemetic aspect. These are the effects, you know, so we have atom, seed, offspring, progeny, children. Now that's the one who's commencing creation in the being, the giver of life that caused this to be. Tara, but here's Dara. The Z is interchangeable with the D and the H in sound shifting. So we see in the Canaanite aspect, Muabic. Let me go over here. I got to actually take that back because it seems like I can't pause this thing. I tried to. It won't let you pause it. But anyway, yeah, posterity, children. You know, and the symbol for Ta and Ra is right here. And we see Ta with the DNA helix, you know, strand right here. We see 4, which is dealing with a manifestation of, let me take it back again because I know it's going to change. But it's dealing with, you know, actually where this Ta is calling forth creation in the being. And this 4 represents material. And this semicircle represents the rise, you know, of what it is that one is creating. You know, this is the metaphysical breakdown. So I looked at this twisted flax as a DNA double helix expression. Ta and Ra. What is Ra? It is the manifestation of what is hidden in what is being called in the being. So now when we get deeper into this drawing family, you know what? I'm going to do this real quick because I know, okay, not there. See this right here? You see the numbers up here, Morris King?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so you see the 4 elements, Yod, and that's the number 1. You know, that's the Hebrew letter, Yod. You got Hey, that's the 4 and the 5. Well, 4 and the 1, which is 5. That's the atomic mass. That we, you know, the atomic mass work. Then we have the water. We're dealing with oxygen, right? And so oxygen, again, you know, this is 6. This is 5 and 1. We didn't have to do the Hay again because in all actuality, the Hay was still the same thing as it was from the beginning. Let me go back to that. And so what I did is when I dealt with the math and adding everything up, you know, dealing with what makes up the body, it's something else because we're talking about the 4 things that make up the body, the hydrogen, or let's just say the thymine, the cytosine, adenine, you know, and the hydrogen. But when we look at the letter on the beginning, nitrogen, oxygen, and carbon, you know, in this order, it manifests the Hebrew word Enoch, Enoch, which is AKA also Alknu, you know, Tehudi. And I say, man, that's powerful because that's divine mind. Divine mind in action. We're talking about thought activity. You see what I'm saying? So let me show you here. I got one more drawing I was trying to pull up. Actually, I already have it here. Let me see here. Where is that thing at? One more. I just had it pulled up here. I know it's up here. Not that one. Come on. Okay, yeah, it's right here. There it is. So let me share this here. I got to share this a different way. Okay, present. Then we're going to share the screen. And I got a window. There it is right there. And let me know when you see this. Can you see that, Morris, Ken?
The song?
Now, remember I was talking about Actons, Hermes, and so forth and so on. This is actually dealing with, and this is a scientific portion here, this page. I'm actually going to do this presentation too Monday, tomorrow, on the Brother Sarnetta channel. I'm going to go into this because we got people that's debating about the name Allah. I'm going to just do a presentation, show that Allah is the same in the Bible as he is in the Quran, because you got people trying to cause division and basically say that they two different people. So I'm going to do a presentation on this right here. And this right here is, I want to touch on the Egyptian Hermes, which we know that this is actually Tehuti. And, they say he was perceived as the source of science. And this followed from earlier sources that treated the Egyptian taught Tehuti Hermes as the origin of many sciences. So it ain't strange that when we get into the concept of the DNA, in the double helix, and when we go through the DNA breakdown, just like it manifests the Yahweh degree, it also manifests the fact, like I said, when we deal with the elements that, creation deal with, it makes up the name Hinna. So it makes sense when it say a prophet was caught up in the third heaven, because this had to be in the realm, of one's DNA. And I say our common ancestors at the top of the rung of the DNA ladder, just like our chairman showed you in the 12-step ladder in the chart he created, going up on the incline, and he showed you that there's a door, and then you come through the lost tribes of Ali, and who you think it is up there behind the door. It's the God that's within you. But Tehuti, like I said, represent divine mind, being a name for the supreme being, as we see in our Moorish Holy Quran as well. This all makes sense. Tehuti didn't only manifest in the form of a man, but Tehuti manifested as mind in many different cultures. You see what I'm saying? Mainly from the Atlantean to the Kemetic, and then, even in the Babylonian tradition, Tehuti was present in all these places, not as, a physical body manifesting, but as the mind, the divine mind. You see? So yeah, this is a powerful demonstration. And look at what it says here. Some say it was the Egyptians who invented medicine. Others say Hermes invented all crafts in philosophy and medicine. Both of these would be the same, because, Hermes or Tehuti, is Egyptian or Kemetic. You see? So it wouldn't be strange to say that he is connected to medicine coming into being, along with knowing that he invented letters and numbers. And he invented, the expression that we call the language of God, as far as, the symbols are expressed, the thoughts that manifest things and, forms and so forth and so on. So this is a powerful demonstration. You're thinking about divine mind. That's really what's active. Divine mind is the same thing when we refer to things coming forth from intelligent design, to make it plain, meaning that there is an intelligence behind everything in life and creation. Now, what the European trying to do is manipulate and replicate that intelligence in the form of nanotechnology, and they trying to tear something up. They want to bring something to use to heal again as a weapon to kill. As they always do masonically, just like they use their tools to kill instead of build. It's the same degree. You know, our tools are used in the workshop of the mind with thought is used to be a character. They tools, they done killed the master builder with them. Make it make sense. Islam, Sister Curtis Bay.
Islam.
Goodness gracious.
Going back to that little slide that you had up there when it was talking about the Egyptians invented the medicine, and you say Tahuti and Hermes, they are the same people. Well, I know we said that Imhotep was the father of medicine. So how do Imhotep tie in there then?
Well, Imhotep came after Tahuti.
Okay,
you know what I mean? Imhotep came after Tahuti. You know.
Okay.
But Tahuti is the true father, you know, of medicine. He would be the real father, the originator of it.
Okay.
You know, Imhotep just became the more popular to the so-called Greeks. You know, who they started calling Asclepius. You know, but that's also a connection between that and the same information I have here. You know, it talks about Asclepius. That's the other name that they use.
Okay.
You know, matter of fact, look, here it is right here was my next slide. I'm gonna show it to you.
Okay.
The slide right up under the one that I just showed you. Watch what it say.
Okay. And it would make sense that Imhotep come after Tahuti. Well, that's just that DNA passing on down.
Yeah, of course. You know, remember these are stations.
Right.
You know, and the station is always there. So Tahuti, you know, it's just like all saw and all set. You know what I mean? They ever present. That's what here it is right here. You know, as it was going on, it was speaking, and it says, it was speaking here. It says he was also associated with the Hebrew prophet Enoch, you know, and the Quranic prophet Idris. Same people.
Okay.
You know, Enoch is another way, like I said, and I showed that to you a few minutes ago. You know, so this is really talking about Tahuti, but it said it was said Al-Kifti Ikbar to have taught the Greek Asclepius. See?
Okay.
So that means Tahuti, you know, which is known as Enoch or Idris, biblically or Quranically, because that's the only difference in the names. Idris is the name used in the Quran. You know, they also use Akhnuk, which is Enoch in the Bible. And they say he was took up in the third heaven.
Right.
But that's a whole nother measure. We ain't even got to go there. We know what that means. You know, he was in the adept chamber. It says to have taught the Greek Asclepius, you see, who traveled from Greece to Egypt, especially to learn to transfer scientific knowledge back to Greece. Remember, I just said that. Al-Kifti seems to have been aware of the nature of the relationship between the Greek Asclepius and the Egyptian Imhotep. Remember, I was telling you that they call him Asclepius in Greek, but really, see what I'm saying? And this is an actual Islamic document here. This is a scholastic, peer-reviewed piece of information that was submitted as a thesis.
Okay.
You know, this information in here. So this ain't just no scholarship, authorship demonstration. This is scholarship, really like research. You know, information that I draw this from.
Okay.
You know, all of this information here. So it says, in other words, Hermes was identified in Arabic sources also with Imhotep. So like you said, just another incarnation. Because it was 3 different versions of Hermes.
Oh, okay.
Hermes the Kemetic. You had Hermes the Babylonian again, and that's really Tahuti the Kemetic, Tahuti the Babylonian. Then they had the Greek expression of it. But it's still referring to the same, you know, sage manifesting in different places at different times.
Right.
This is reincarnation, basically. Hermes was identified in Arabic sources with Imhotep as well as with Tut. See what I'm saying?
That's right.
Tahuti, following the Greek tradition, alluded to this. Ibn Fatik, pardon himself, alluded to this, and these are Arab scholars that are respected by the Islamic world. It said to this through description of physical appearance of Hermes. Among the many features, then they say he was dark colored, so that lets you know who he was. He definitely was Adam Alum, complete body, bald, handsome, with thick beard, and broad shoulder, large bone with little flesh. That means that he had little body fat, so to speak. He was muscular.
Yeah.
Bright eyes painted with cold, generally spoken with long silences, unmoving limbs, walking, often focus his eyes on the ground, mostly in deep thought. He is very serious and moves his index finger during talking. He lived on earth for 82 years.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? This particular expression. Now, some would say in another aspect, 100 and some years, but you're
Right.
dealing with a different incarnation. But it
Mhm.
says Muslim alchemists regarded this Hermes, see, as one of the founders of the science of alchemy. They claimed that he was the source of their own material and knowledge, as did Abu Qasim al-Iraqi. It says that's another Arab scholar. It was Hermes who wrote the famous tableau, Samarkand, the Emerald Tablet. You see, you know what that Tehuti wrote that, but they're
Right.
using the name Hermes here, which contained the key to all the secrets of the universe. For literature on this tablet, see Khan 1995 references there. The name of this tablet in Arabic is Allahi al-Mahfuz. You hear me say that all the time. And they call that the preserved tablet. So you see, they saying the emerald tablet that we know, excuse me, we know of is really Allahi al-Mahfuz. It says, which has a profound meaning for Muslims, as it is mentioned in the Quran. This glorious Quran inscribed in an internally preserved tablet. See, this is different from the physical Quran you have in your hand. You know, this is dealing with the book of creation. This is actually the book of books. You see, so there are different versions. Quran just means recitation, but it says meaning that the most revered book for Muslim has been in eternal existence. We know that ain't the physical Quran. This go beyond the physical. Now we getting into the book of the creation, book of the universe. It say it has already been noted that Hermes was Islamicized in these Arab sources, and that alchemists elevated this tablet to a revered status as the origin of their sacred knowledge. This idea is rooted in the ancient Egyptian materials, as can be seen in the rubrics in the Book of the Dead, where magical spells were believed to be found on the tablet of real lapis lazuli. You know, and if you don't know what lapis lazuli is, it's stone that's jade in color, greenness in color. So they saying that, you know, these magical spells, we know that these are really formulas. And they saying that these things, you know, truly are the emerald tablet are written upon, you know, the lapis lazuli. Remember I said earlier, said this is often also too as Hermes, referred to as Hermes the Babylonian as well. There's yet another Hermes, the third, who also lived in Egypt. You see what I'm saying? So we can see these various different times that Tehuti is manifesting. It says Mashar, hold up. It says, pardon itself. It says the main source in almost all Arabic materials for these various Hermes is Abu Mashar al-Balkhi in his book Thousands of House of Worship. Very popular measure among Orthodox Islam, which is now lost. It says only small fragments of it have been collected and edited by Penury. Long quotations from Abu Mashar found in many Arab books when referred to Hermes, for example, Ibn Jujur, who said Hermes III, the Egyptian, is known as Trismegistus. You can see the name Idris in the root of Tris there, because if you put a D there, that becomes Dris. Idris. It says because he is the third of the three sages. He was from Egypt after the flood. That would have been the Atlantean flood. And then he migrated into Egypt along the Nile Valley, and he taught Al-Sar. That's the way they teach the teaching. A traveling philosopher, an ancient one, who knew the countries very well, their cults and their people's characters. He wrote an excellent book on alchemy and other poisonous animals. He was a native scientist of Egypt and country among the esteemed ones. It had a great kingdom and ancient fame in olden times as evidence from their monuments, buildings, sanctuaries, science centers, most of which still stand in the country to this day, and all of which is agreed by all people are unique on earth. You see, after the flood, highly esteemed ancient Egyptian scientists were said to be knowledgeable in all science and philosophy, including mathematics and physical sciences and theology. Said tells us that the ancient Egyptians dealt with the most complex of problems. That's them formulas. He quoted a widely used source named Saifi on one such problem, the theory of creation. You see how much information out here is being made reference to, you know, and touching on these same subjects, you know. So yeah, look, it says the mirabilia of Egyptian sciences. Muslim Arab sources attributed pre-Islamic Egyptian scientists. Many scientific innovations can be called mirabilia and attributed to them. It says following the inventions of and disciplines: medicine, alchemy, magic, astronomy, which were taught for the first time by Hermes, the Cop, Tehudi again, who preserved these sciences on the walls of Egyptian temples. The burning mirror on the top of Alexandria, the lighthouse, which in addition to the guiding ships into the harbor, had two other functions. First, an early warning system enabling watchers to see ships long before the arrival of the Egyptian coast. And the second, utilized in cases where ships turned out to be hostile by directing the mirror at certain angle to reflect and intensify the sun rays and focus them on the incoming enemy ships to set them alight and see. You know, so, you know, these are different sciences, mechanical devices such as water clocks, water wheels, and automated devices used in the temple, such as those seen in the work of the hero of Alexandria. Metal cannons that fire sulfur to protect the Egyptian against the enemies. You know, all of this stuff here. You know, the idea that monuments were built with astronomical orientations and functions in mind is indeed supported by modern research. Hawkins noted that the obelisk in the chapel of Harakati at Abu Simbel, it says, together with other elements, pointed toward the rising of the mid-water sun. On this obelisk, now Cairo Museum, in recent experimental works, the use of Egyptian obelisks as an gnomon was shown to work in practice. Furthermore, the medieval idea that monuments, in particular the pyramids, not only had surviving astronomical functions, but could also be used as tools for working out chronologies, is now being taken seriously by Egyptologists. You know, so it's a whole bunch of information in here, a lot to unpack, you know, but the main thing is that showing that Egypt is the source of all sciences, you know, and when we get into the language and everything, we know Jehudi produced that. So it ain't strange that I was able to show you a few minutes ago, you know, what I showed you in reference to that name manifesting out of the very elements that we are supposed to be made of. How powerful is that? That gematria, cometria, stoichia, and cometria is something else, which we finna get into that in a second here, and then we're gonna open up the floor to our scribes so we can close this measure. But it ain't no strange happening that we went into what we went into. But scribes, do you have anything that you would like to say before we move forward in regards to what we just unpacked in the information concerning Jehudi? Islam, brother.
They have goddesses, I guess they are contemplating. Well, I thought that was big praise on something different. Well, you know, in listening to everything you say, it pretty much just bears witness to what we've been taught all this time. You know what I mean? Because the prophet brought us everything. He brought us all this knowledge. You know what I mean? Our ancestors were so advanced, but they want to call them primitive because they want to hide, you know what I mean, who we are. You know what I mean? They just want to, they just shine the light on their purpose. in this life today to bury us physically, mentally, and spiritually. But praise the Lord for sending us the prophet, for waking us up, for bringing us the truth. You know what I mean? Amongst all of the distractions. And here is most American government, and one such as yourself, a deep scientist that's gone into this language. You know what I mean? That's holding, say, all of the hidden treasures, so to speak. And I just say gratitude, God, man, for you, for all you do. Islam and peace.
And Islam and peace. You know, if we look up what was actually being said, like I showed you, Tehuti, you know, in the form of Enoch being connected to Yahweh, you know, it makes sense because we go to our Moorish Holy Quran, we speak on the unity of Allah and man. We can see that it speaks on how, you know, he is called Thot, you know, in Egypt, and Jehovah, you know, by the Hebrews, and Jehovah is another form of Yahweh. So that teaching is right there in our Moorish Holy Quran. Like, this is stuff that our prophet taught us that we really didn't see the connection in this. We understand again, Tehuti is being divine mind. This was the God man manifesting itself from Atlantis all the way into Kemet, all the way into Babylon, you know, and even into, you know, ancient Greece, because we know the original Greeks, you know, were dark hue. They were melanated. You know, these were your Attics, as they called it. They have other names that they use for them. The Kiftihu, so to speak, which is close to the Coptic concept. You know, we know Coptic is the original language that they like to call Greek, so it ain't strange. You know, so yeah, we, and the Minoans is also another name they use. I have a video dealing with the stolen legacy where I touch on that. But Islam, go ahead, Sister Curtis Bay.
Yes, I was just going to say, I had the thought of wanting to know more about Tahuti because, you know, I was born under his name. And what you just showed, it's just powerful to me to understand the different roles and the different times that he was here, but you know, called by different names. And it's almost like the way our prophet was. You know, he was Yehoshua, and then Muhammad, and then, you know, and to see Tahuti coming down that same lineage, but called by different names and stuff. And I'm just sitting here just absorbing all that you're saying and what you're presenting. Definitely gonna go back and listen to the playback and just listen and play it over again. Islam, gratitude.
Islam, yeah, it's the same spirit manifesting through different times and climes. Islam, Sister Grand Secretary of the State.
Islam, I just want to give much honor to this class and also to our scribes and you, Dr. Shahi, because I can remember early in study where you had the various names. And for me, it was like a disconnect because one could not discern the golden cord of love throughout all of these. And this class has kind of brought them together so that you can see it coming from a universal aspect. Or when you were speaking about Asar and Aset, and then their seed is Haru, and then the cycle continues on. That is a powerful demonstration, you know. So this is a blessing because it takes away the dissection and the cutting into pieces, the burning, and every other thing to try to keep us separate from what our ancestors brought and what our ancestors actually created and were passing down to us as descendants. Gratitude.
And gratitude, and it's another drawing, like in relation to it, to where when I was dealing with the adept chamber, you know, they use the term second Allah, and I was telling y'all the name Allah go back to Kemet, and this really represents a state of existence or a state of being, but they also call it a menti. And we know a menti, again, represents the underworld, and it's really the things that you can't see with the physical eye. You know, this is third heaven. I have literal sources that call this third heaven, these Egyptian places. So like the prophet was on point. Like I say, it's just up to us to unpack the wisdom and everything it is that he brought to us. So when they ask you, well, you know, what was the initiation? The prophet gave us keys. The circle 7 in and of itself is a key. We give honors to our brother Freeman, you know, that passed for him a few years ago for using that, coming forth with that acronym, knowledge, order, you know, rhythm, astronomy, or astrology and nature, Koran, Quran, letting you know that that's all the knowledge that's in our information, you know, which a lot of people like to call the Hermetic degree, but it's really not Hermetic. You know, it's really a measure of Kemetic, because we know the K is interchangeable with, you know, the H, you know, so we just have to know these things. And then we don't, like you say, we won't clash over this information, because you got some people, you know, will clash over the difference between what's Hermetic and what's Kemetic. You know, we understand when we hear the term Hermetic, there's a Greco-Roman influence there, but it's really still talking about the science that we produce. You know, that's this way of indirectly saying they got it from Kemet, but they using the word that's most nearest and dearest to them, which is Herm, coming from Hermes. You know, just as we deal with the expression of what we call hermeneutics. That's an expressive interpretation of a thing. You know, an exegesis of a thing, the way that you interpret. That's what the book that Saeed Nursi is brought forth is rooted in. A lot of hermeneutics. You know, the ability to, again, demonstrate exegesis and interpretation with matters of clarity. You know, but that's a whole nother drawing. So I want to touch on the rest of these measures that I never got a chance to finish. Like I say, we'll go from there, and then we'll pick up in our next session. Let me stop this here. Okay. And I want to get into, I actually already have it open up. There you go, right there. So I can get into this here, and we're going to go through this degree by degree in the Comanche real quick and open up for our scribes so we can close out. So let me hit the share button, share the screen. Okay, let's see. I think, yeah, there it is right there. We're going to just share that portion there. Can you all see that I'm sharing, Morris Ken, the email? Islamism. So, okay. This was the first picture, and we'll go over this again. Just want to go through all of them this time in essence and really get into this knowledge. And if you have your book, like I say, I encourage you, family, to study this book. You know, the Hermetic Magic book we were talking about, and they really talking about the magical papyri, which we actually have a copy of that because we went over that when we were studying the language. But it says arithmosophy. You know, we want to look this up real quick and show you what arithmosophy is. Okay. Okay. I got to re-share this here because before we even read that. Okay, share the screen. I want to share the window. Let's see here. All right. Well, Chrome tab. Okay, there you go, right there. Now hit share. And y'all see what this says here. Wisdom. And this is just a random page I'm pulling up. Arithmosophy of number wisdom. The term arithmosophy, literally translated, means simply number wisdom. By numbers here, we mean the counting numbers from 0 to 1, 2, 3. Do individual numbers have inherent meanings? Obviously, if a number comes up In a practical calculation, such as measuring the size of a room or doing one's accounts, there's usually no reason to suppose that the number is telling you anything except that you are in the red or the room is too small to fit your bed into. Meaning of the number depends on what it is counting. For example, in the length of 7 centimeters, the 7 has no arithmetic significance. Since the centimeter, it says, is just an arbitrary unit. But in the period of 7 days, the 7 may have significance since 7th day is a natural unit. It says, one of the best known examples of this is the association of the number 13 with bad luck, which is often regarded as a superstition. We will see below, however, that a systematic scheme of the interpretation of numbers can be developed, beginning with the number 1 representing unity, the number 2 analysis, the number 3 synthesis, in which this symbolism for the number 13 can be some extent justified. At any rate, there's a long tradition of assigning ideas or meaning to numbers. I don't claim that the assignment of meaning to numbers as given here is a matter of fact. It is just plausible scheme. Of course, I realize that many mathematicians may well treat this whole subject as a piffle. It states, but I do find it attractive as an art form, if not of practical use. I've tried to avoid making overblown claims for it, such as are found in religious texts. It is possible that this scheme might be developed to become a practical way of librarying and cataloging like a Dewey system, but it would need much more systematization. But it says, the following poem is a summary of the seconds below by stopping the number 21 at the number 21. We are, of course, following the traditional scheme adopted in pictorial cards of the Tarot, which is simply a depict of the journey through life. And it says the wisdom of numbers, naught thought, the paradox of non-existence, the blank page. It says one begun, a fluctuation in the void, an idea in the mind. 2 will do, dark and light, positive and negative. See, that's that duality, repulsion and separation. 3, chemistry, attraction, relationship, and connection. 4, law, northeast, southwest, a sense of place. 5, alive, flowering into complexity, characters take on a life of their own. 6, physics, balancing forces, the plot thickens. 7, heaven, idealistic dreams, mystic motivations, the strange. 8, weight, serious gravity, speaking volumes. 9, fine, constructive craft, weaving the web. 10, men, life struggle, nature's evolution. 11, other wind, remembrance, never too late. 12, deeply delved, zodiacal signs, measures of time. 13, unforeseen, future foreboding, fortune's lucky chances. 14, obscene, broken ideas, alienation, schism. 15, green, healing wounds, gaining firm ground. 16, machine, work routine, labor and bill. 17, serene, pattern making, embroidery and enhancement. 18, intervene, read between the lines, perfect the art. It states 19, unseen, ineffable, which is left unsaid. 20, plenty, life abundant, inspiration overflowing. 21, dawn, reaching the strange attractive resolution. Infinity, sublimity, the inverse of zero, the circle returns on itself, and so on. And if you know about the 21, that's 7, 7, and 7. But that's a whole nother measure. So yeah, this thing is deep, going into the different aspects of it. And then they give more measures dealing on the concepts of each one of these drawings. From the number 1 all the way up to, the 21, and Then they even come up with the 22 and so forth and so on. But you can find these different measures. You know, I don't want to try to go through all of this here, but, you know, again, you know, in the basic aspect, dealing with arithmosophy, you know, we are dealing with a form of numerology that equate letters or words with numbers, you know, which is also Stoicheion Gematria. We understand in the Stoicheion that these letters, you know, represent, you know, different expressions of thoughts and things. So, yeah, this is powerful.
So all that you was reading, you just went up under that heading and all that came up, right? Because
Yeah, just
on the screen.
yeah,
Oh, Islam.
yeah. All that come from on. Yeah, it comes on the esoteric occult. You can just type arithmosophy in, and it's going to basically give you, you know, different things. So now we'll go back to our original slide.
Okay.
I just wanted to touch bases on what it was.
Mm-hmm.
And now we'll go back into our original slides with the definition. Okay, let's see here. Arithmosophy. And I'm gonna go back into that original email I just had. I just got to put it in the queue. Okay, there it is there. Okay, yeah, that's what we want. So now let me go back. Let me share the screen. And then we'll do, once we bring everything up, you know, we'll have our family. Here it is, arithmosophy. Y'all see that, right? Again.
It's
Okay, so it says, in the ancient Papyri, it is always made clear that the idea of number, it says, an important part of the constitution of magical formulas, which we call anaglyphic formulas. Within the texts themselves, quite often the writer would tell us that a given name is to be made up of a certain number of letters. Other formulas, such as the famous Abraxas, are obviously first and foremost numerical formulas in the shape of words. It says, as we have already mentioned, some Greek schools of thought held that number is the root of all things. We have also observed how true it is, how true this is, on what we like to call a scientific basis today. It says, but for the ancient Pythagoreans and Platonists, this logical use of the qualities of numbers was only the beginning, a beginning to what could be done with them. Their secrets, if unlocked with wisdom and insight, could yield understanding of the very qualities of being dwelling with the Eternal One. And we demonstrated that earlier. It states the numerical system of the Greek Stoicheia, it says, has already been presented in table 3, page 111. Each letter has a numerical value. In Greek practice, when a letter was meant to be understood as a new number, a mark would be inscribed next to it. For example, you know, we see this Greek letter, you know, it equals 100 in the Greek system of the number letters. Theta is unique and stands alone in the 9th column. The signs for 90 and 900 being purely numerical symbols. Also, the simple representation of the number 6 is impossible without the recourse to the obsolete, the gamma. Numbers have been imbued with symbolic qualities by most cultures. The ancient magical papyri are full of references to such culturally specific numerical symbols. For example, when the number 7 is mentioned, it is most often a reference to the god Set Typhoon. You know, and Set was even used, you know, as a punishment. He had to become, you know, the wind that actually allowed the boat of Ra to become set a sail. Or, you know, he had to stand in defense, you know, in the form of being, let's say, a mufti, whether he liked it or not. Let's just put it that way. But even Set was not seen just as a common enemy, You know, he just seemed to be a part of the natural order of things. Just like the lower self, we need the lower self to know our higher self. You see, in order to know how high we can go, we got to know how low we done been. You see? So let me go to the other second page. This is actually the one that never loaded with the group. So this picks up what the other left off. Whose seat? This is Set Typhoon, whose seat is behind the constellation of Thigh. And we know that's the Kafesh, which is the scimitar, or what they call the constellation of the scimitar, or the Thigh, which also consists of 7 stars. That's the Big Dipper. We most commonly call this the constellation Big Dipper. You know, and like I say, that's a powerful demonstration, because that is showing that adept symbol that the prophet brought, the scimitar and star. It's all over the place. We got all these sources saying this, so now we know why the prophet brought us that symbol. However, the usual use of the numerical symbolism at the deepest level of understanding is one we know about from the writings of the Pythagoreans and Neoplatonists. These are the ones who went into Kemet or learned from Kemet indirectly of those who came out of Greece, you know, and brought the teaching back to them. Their initiation, you know, was never one that dealt with buildings. It was a word of mouth measure that was passed down through oral tradition. For them, each of the numbers 1 through 10 had a special, if manifold, qualities, meaning. Note that for them, the idea of the number was not confined to the matter of quantity. Here, a few qualities ascribed to each of the numbers in the theology of arithmetic, thought to be based on the works of Neoplatonists and Thurgis and Blickus. You know, it goes into the monad. We talked about this before. It said it is called the first, or the Proteus, and the maker, the Demergius. It is life and God. It is darkness and matter. The one excludes nothing. That's the all in all, right? And is in so being, nothingness itself. You see? It says, in many ways, the one shared many qualities with that we know as zero today. The concept zero came to the West from India via the Arabs again, and it is borrowed from the Sanskrit script asunya. The one is both order and taxia, infinite space, chaos. So order out of chaos, you know, the concept really comes from the aspect of creating something out of nothing. In the beginning was the word with God, and the word was God, and then, you know, everything manifests as a result of that. You know, darkness was upon the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the water. That's the principle of oneness. You know, when we go into our chapter dealing with the creation and fall of man, you know, both the creation and fall is mentioned in a subsequent event. You know, so it's really dealing with oneness, you know, in order to manifest matter from the darkness. That's from one end of the spectrum to the next. Out of the darkness comes the expression of nature. You know, the end result of coming out of darkness into light is the matter, you know, which come forth everything from the mother. Mother and matter is the same thing. You see what I'm saying? That's a powerful demonstration. So then I would ask my scribes, if you were to give your example of the monad, or the one, you know, coming from a Moorish aspect, what ayat would you express coming off your head?
Time never was when man was not.
There you go. You can't get it better than that. All right. Next scribe.
Man don't die, we don't die. Islam.
All right. What's another one, Sister Curtis Bay, dealing with this concept of one? If we're looking at the monad.
Time never was when man was not.
Islam. You know, we go into the unity of Allah, man, that's a prime example as well. That'll go into a lot of expressions we can find on being Allah as one, but he's the all as well. So gratitude. Two, which is called the diet, or diet, so to speak. It says it is nature in motion, dynamic growth. It is the ratio, or logos, or proportion, analogia. This is really dealing with duality. Again, how these things are actually manifested. So what would be your example of the concept of two as it relates to the math, Morris Ken?
Two selves, higher self and lower self, light and dark.
Go. There you go. All right. Next scribe. Go ahead, Brother Marvin Edward Bay.
Why did creative faith give the soul a body that he may function on the plane of soul?
Powerful. Yep. And give him a body of flesh to function on the plane the thing may manifest. Yep. That's right. That's dealing with nature, emotion, and dynamic growth. Dealing with the ratio of the logos, in proportion. But what have you to say, Sister Dendra?
And these soul attributes became a body of beauty.
There you go. Spirit clothed with soul made in the form of a law. Man is truth and falsehood strangely mixed. We can see the same principle. See, the truth never contradicts itself. It's all about the way that we view it. What about three, the triad? It says, here is harmony in knowledge, gnosis. The triad is the mean between extremes. What about that one, scribe? Three.
Wisdom, will, love.
Right, the triune of law. Well, all right, other scribes.
Oh, that's four. We're looking for the three, right?
Uh-huh. And there are many examples given in the teaching. Grand Secretary of State just gave one.
Here now, everything that is or was or evermore will be.
Peace be to Allah. That's a powerful demonstration. Is, was, and evermore to be. Yes, sir. What about you, Brother Marvin Edwards Bay?
Allah the husbandman and earth the mother.
Oh yeah, father, mother, son. It's the father and the mother that manifest the son. That's the triune Allah as well. Islam. And then we move to four. We have the tetrad. This is where they get the concept of tetragrammaton from. The tetrahedron. This is dealing with the four. All of these are really dealing with different expressions of angles in geometry, really. It says this is called the nature of change and that which holds the key to nature. This is dealing with material, manifestation, spirit, uniting divinity and the matter, so to speak. What have you to say about this four, Morris Ken?
Hear ye cherubim, ye seraphim, ye angels, ye men.
Oh, you gonna go there, huh?
Yeah.
Islam, Sister Curtis Bay, come straight out the dial plate with it. Well, all right. What about the other scribes?
Justice, mercy, love, and right.
There you go. You look at that. Goodness gracious. All right now, Brother Marvin Edward Bay, you in trouble.
I know. Out of darkness come the light. And then we have love manifested. Islam.
Islam, yes, sir. Praise be to Allah. We can see them four elements: earth, air, water, and fire. Manifesting the desire. Islam. Well, all right. And notice it's going into the pentet, the five. It is called the immortal. and equated with light in the manifestation of justice. I know y'all love this one right here now. Goodness gracious. See the prophet's adept symbol in that. What y'all got to say about that one, scribe?
Allah, leg, he.
Ooh-wee.
Love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice.
Uh-oh, right behind it. Goodness gracious. Uh-oh, Marvin Edwards, baby. What you got to say about that 5, brother? If you speaking, we can't hear you, grandman. You might be muted out.
I think he dropped off.
What? Oh, my bad. Let me see if he's still. Yeah, there you go. Let me add him back to the stage. There you go. Brother Marvin Evans, baby, we see you. You back in here?
See, I knew there was something going on. No.
Yeah, something going on. Like, what in the world? I didn't even know you had dropped off.
You know what happens? Gratitude. Yeah, I just said justice, mercy, love, and right. And come in the return of the ancient ones.
Yeah, that's the prophet right there. You know, notice it's talking about the immortal equated with light and manifestation of justice. How many times does justice take its course throughout the various cycle ages? You can't even count them. Goodness gracious. But anyway, next one, 6, the Hexad. You know, I know y'all gonna know this one too. The Hexad this is called the form of forms and the reconciliar. The Hexad possesses wholeness, and here's the marriage between male and female. Ooh-wee.
So below.
Y'all know that's the 6-pointed star, right? Go ahead, brother
Right.
Marvin Evans.
Yeah, I would say as above, so below.
Yeah,
That's what
right.
I had on my paper. As above, so
Yeah.
below. That 6-pointed
See
star.
there?
Yep.
Look at Marvin Evans, baby. He done snatched that out. He said he gonna get y'all for the last 2.
Right?
His Lord.
The same thing. We was all on that same page because I'm trying to
That's
tell.
right. That's right.
Yeah, the higher self is what the lower self is not. You know.
Mm-hmm.
So we can go into justice, mercy, love, and right. We can go into, you know, the opposite of that, which is, you know, well, we already know. Well, love, truth, peace, freedom, justice. The opposite of that, which is LSD, D, and B. You know, so yeah, that's it.
Yeah,
you know,
not above, below, around.
And notice it say the marriage between male and female. That's the same as Jehudi. I mean, not Jehudi, but Heru and Set. Reconciling. You know, this is the Samai Tower. You know, this brings about a unity of Lower and Upper Kemet. You see? But yeah, that marriage also at a high degree of unfoldment, that's a powerful demonstration. But that's something both man and woman must do. 7, it says the heptad. It is known as the citadel or Acropolis, and the one which preserves. The heptad is the Reverend 7. Oh man, Islamism without the schism. What y'all got to say about that one, scribe?
7 infinite thoughts.
Go. All right, sister. What about our grand second?
Earth, plant,
Say it.
beast, man, angel, cherubim.
Ooh-wee, Elohim. Tapping right into the one that preserved. What about you, brother Marvin Edwards, babe? That's an easy one here.
Yes, hear ye not, ye seraphim. I mean, ye cherubim, ye seraphim, ye angels, and ye men. Hear now, O protoplasm, earth. Okay, let me stop right there.
Oh yeah, powerful. I mean, you ain't said nothing slick to a can of Moorish oil, you know, and when we get into the aspect of dealing with that, you know, we can see the 7th of the time. 7 sages of the ages, you know. So we can see that this concept of what we call arithmosophy, you know, we actually dealing with our own measures. And you know, this is going to be part of our homework too, you know, to come up with our own chart so to speak, in reference to this drawing, because all of this is all part of the science and being able to work with this, Kemetic as it relates to our stoicheion. We are having our people catalog, their own measures when it comes to bringing forth the treasures. Powerful demonstration. If that don't get the neurons fired up, what will? So let me go further into this. Okay, and all of this is coming straight off the head. So to let it be known that we got these archives up in here in representation of this wisdom. Islamism without the schism. Let me see. Trying to find our other one now that go through the rest of these in the Kemetic. I thought I had it in here already. That deal with the 8, 9, and 10.
Yeah, we talked about it in last class.
Yeah, last week we went into it. We just did certain things we didn't touch on. Oh, there it go, right there.
No.
Y'all see it?
I'm trying to make it disappear. I was working on my God powers there.
What you trying to make it disappear for? So we have, and this is actually the last few, 8, the octave. I know this one right here want to draw out the ethers. Now, this is steadfast and the seat, which is the all harmonious. Oh, that's easy too. Islam. What y'all think that is? This one right here, you got to work for to get to the next two, because the last two easy. Any one of our scribes?
Islam.
Go ahead, grand man.
And man and Allah is one. Islam.
Powerful. That's powerful. All right. But what does that oneness represent? I'll give you a hint. It's actually the name all set in Kemetic. What does the name all set really mean?
Throne.
There you go. Throne.
Oh, okay.
So now when we get there, I done gave it all away. I know y'all got us if it coming there and tear it up now. I know y'all know somebody else that draw off that throne.
I'm trying to think.
Blank.
But
I'm drawing the blank.
Didn't the prophet say he was gonna take you up above the Almighty?
Yeah.
Above the stars, around the Almighty throne of Allah.
Mm-hmm.
And we know the throne is really above the neck, ain't it?
Right.
Yes.
Ain't that the seat which is all harmonious?
Mm-hmm.
When we got a balance between our thinking, that left and right hemisphere.
Right.
Yeah. Oh yeah, we can go on and on with that throne now. We can talk about who and who het, kook and kookette, infinite light and infinite space and all that stuff there. That's the octave. Or the octet, as they like to call it. What about 9? The Ennead. Oh, that's an easy one right there. I know y'all gonna. This
Tree of life.
There you go.
Re-entry.
That's one expression of it. Say that. Yep, re-entry. Goodness gracious, y'all coming back to bite. Marvin Edwards, baby, they done beat you to the punch again.
I know. Okay. I'm gonna have to come back.
That's all right. Well, it says the Ennead. This is called perfection because it is the oneness of mind. It says here, there's not oneness of the one beyond the ability to be conscious, but oneness in a conscious state. It is equated with Prometheus, who sees ahead and who brings to perfection. The Ennead is the Horus, or the horizon, the border between the outer realms and the return to the 1 in 10. Which goes, like the sister said, the re-entry. Remember, this 9 is a very powerful demonstration. It deals with rebirth. This is the consciousness that comes back, and this is the perfection that's able to be made, because we call it, reincarnation as well. 1 to 9 and then to the 0, another cycle begins. This is how cycle ages come about. This is how different sages come throughout the climes and the times, representing that concept of the 9. Islam?
Islam?
Go ahead, brother.
Okay, this is the prophet teaching us from the soul plane. Islam?
There you go. There you go. He doing it again. He did it before. He doing it again through us. And last but not least, we have 10, which is the decade. Here, there's a return to the quality of 1, but on a different level. It is equated with eternity or aeon, with memory or necessity. 10 is the number of the cosmos. Oh, that's a good one. Yeah.
Allah.
Allah.
All in all.
All right.
Yeah.
All in all. That's right.
Mhm.
What about you, Sister Curtis Bay?
I'll get ready to say Allah.
Gone.
Let me see what else. Coming from our infinite.
Right. Infinite. Brother Marvin Edwards Bay.
Islam? Yeah, this is from Mustafa Gadala. That's the new alpha. Islam?
Oh man, look at him. He want to show off and get fancy now, y'all.
Islam, yeah, Alpha. Mm-hmm.
The new alpha, that's right. Yeah, he was getting fancy there now. He
Yep.
pulled that one out of his fans. Goodness gracious. Marvin Edwards Bay, all right, now don't you start no stuff up in here. Yeah, but yeah, that's it's the universe, the unity of verses. You know what I mean? Everything you thought that was in opposition in verses is actually in unity. The oneness of verses. So it says these qualitative discussions are highly relevant to understanding the essences of the 10 spheres of being, as the sister spoke on, the tree of life, as depicted in the Alexandrian tree of life. And they are, in fact, something separate from the qualities represented by the Stoicheion, Stoicheia, bearing the same number designations. The Stoicheia are manifestations of quasi-sensible signs of that which is only fully intelligible in the pure abstract numbers of the spheres. So that's where you get into the grand aspect of the concept of the tree of life, or the Kemetic Kabbalah that they refer to as the Hermetic Kabbalah. Remember that one started with the Q. And then you got the one start with the K is Judaism, and the C is actually the one deal with the occult. But they all have, a form of connection, in one way or another. So let me see here. It goes on. Okay. Yeah, and it says the practice of adding together the numerical values of each of the letters of a word or a phrase, deriving the hidden meaning of the word or phrase from the resulting sum, is called gematria, or what they call a apicephia. Gematria, it says the more common term is the more common term because it is used in Hebrew mysticism. The term Sephia, it says, literally means equal stone, which means of equal value. Cephos is the word for stone. Some people say Cephas. It says used in calculating with a device similar to abacus. It is also the word for a stone used in voting for divinatory purposes. When the sum of the two words is the same, they reveal a hidden affinity or identity otherwise unknown. This is in accordance with the Hermetic laws of sympathy. And this is really talking about when you come up with a value for one word and it's the same as the value from another word, there's a relation between these words, so to speak. So if two words yield a 9, you can find a connection between them. But it says here, We will only concern ourselves with the practice of Greek gematria because that is all that will appear in the Hermetic tradition, whether undertaken by Jews or pagans. There are certain rules of Greek gematria. For example, when a sigma or tau come to, let's see right here, and that's together. It should pop up here. There you go. It says they may be written in their combined numerical value is to be as 6. It says in the book of Revelation, the number of the beast is recorded in the original text as, and we can go into the different, we went into the Coptic before and seen a lot of this, but in some of the oldest manuscripts of the text, the number appears, in this expression. It says, which would be read as 6, 1, and 6. Also, if the two numbers are within one unit of each other, they can be read as equals. A key for transliterating the vocus magic back into their original Greek forms can be found in Appendix F, which you can find in your Hermetic book. In the section of the operative phonology, we discussed the 4 common names of power in the Old Papyri. And then they broke, this drawing down, as expressed in the Greek, and then they come and say, let us look at them in their terms of numerical values. And they broke it down and they give the mathematics and added together 179. The numerical sum is a poetic interpretation of the meaning of the name in this case. It is unity, 1, throughout all of the 7 heavens. It says planetary spheres ruled from a high plane of unity, which is recurred in the center. Unity, 7 planes, 179 and 9. You see how they did that based upon the chart that was created then. We would say Allah, the 7 Elohim, and re-entry. You see what I'm saying? If we was doing it our way. That's just freestyling. Abraxas. They do that one. That's 365. We can see the triune above and below and the 5 here. But it says here we have a formula that was primarily created as a numerical entity. The deity, it is meant to conceal is certainly revealed when we discover that the Greek spelling of Mithras, they add that together and it comes to 200, and then they get all the numbers together, it's 365. Mithras is the same number of Abraxas. So they're showing the connection between the two because they got the same number as we mentioned earlier. Abraxas and Mithras are gods of the 365 degrees of the orb of heaven. Packerbeck, this is 225 when they do their math on that. This is known to be a Typhonian name from the context in which it appears throughout the magical papyri. Its key number is 9, right? That's 7, 8, 9. 5, 7, 8, 9, right? The number of the digits of the song when added together, and it is the highest octave of another Typhonian named Urbet. That's 1, 2, and 4. That's 4, 5, 6, and the number 7. It says another name used in the papyri, Arabata, it says also has a geometric value of 124, can also be identified as a Typhonian name. But it says Io, and we know that this is the form of Jehovah Yah. It equals 811. This is the Greek version of the famous Hebraic name Yod-Heh-Wav-Heh. Gematria, God code. Look, 8, 9, 10. It says, which is gematria for 27, 7, 8, and 9. Right? Then it says the key number of the Greek form, it says is 10, 811, which is the highest form of perfection of the decade. It says the last thing the true Hermetic will wish to do is make all of the foregoing into an idle speculation and pseudo-intellectual game plan. These ideas are meant to be used as tools, first for, hold up, let me go here. I should be able to go into this here. The exercise of magical aims. Then for the contemplation of the universe with the understanding that comes with experience. In this regard, you should be forewarned that accurate use of the principles of gematria will depend on access to the original Greek text, some knowledge of the language, the more the better, knowledge of the rules of the process, as well as an understanding of the qualities involved. It is very easy to be led astray or down blind alleys, or worse, by using this precise science in an imprecise way. Obviously, I can only begin to scratch the surface here. There are 1,000 secrets waiting to be uncovered. All true Hermetic magicians will set out to uncover these for themselves. I have been told that 100 volumes could be written from the basic material offered in this one chapter alone. And we've seen from our experience, the things that can be manifested by dealing with experimenting, with these drawings. Hold up. This is actually supposed to be the first one. And this went into the science of the Stoicheia. It states, Stoicheia. It states the Greeks called the letters of their alphabet Stoicheia, elements which is suggestive of the way in which they were taught to describe the building blocks of the cosmos, as well as act as a blueprint for the modification or alteration of the order of the world through Magia. The world is said to consist of 24 essential elements in Stoicheia. You will see this in the tree of life. In between the branches, you will see the letters. If it was dealing with the Hebrew version, you'll see these 24 letters, as they are in between the branches of the tree of life, between the separate. But it says the world is said to consist of 24 essential elements, Stoicheia, each of which finds a manifestation in the 24 letters of the alphabet as bequeathed to humankind by Hermes. There it is. So we know the source that this is coming from. The science of these elements can be classified according to 4 levels of knowledge the magician might have concerning them. They are expressed in shapes, sounds, meanings, and numbers. Powerful. Hermetic magicians will first seek to discover the meanings hidden within each of the elements, and then experimentally implement those elements to modify or influence the subjective and objective universes in a meaningful way. Magic is communication. We know we're talking about Heka. We communicate along natural channels using natural physical manifestations of the Stoicheia. By the same token, we may communicate in the non-natural or psychic way with the non-natural aspects of those same Stoicheia. It states, Stoicheia. It states they are both natural and non-natural aspects to all 4 levels of meaning of the Stoicheia process. And then it goes again into the esoteric study of letters. Many readers of this book will already be familiar with the mystical and magical speculations surrounding the Hebrew letters in the system of Hebrew mysticism, popularly called Kabbalah. These traditions and those of Hermetics are closely related, both in type and historic terms. In fact, it was surely through Hellenistic mysticism that Hebrews further imbued their already magical writing system with numerically mysto-magical significance. It says this is witnessed by the fact that the technique of adding up of the total, and this is here, numerical value of a word is called gematria, which Gershom Scholem cites as being derived from the Greek geometry, measurement of the world. So you are actually measuring different aspects of the world when you tap into this Stoicheia, gematria, that is referred to as gematria. It states, or alternatively from the Greek formula, gematria, a gamma equates to tria. Another major method of Kabbalistic work with letters is called what they call notarikon, which is derived from the Latin word notaricum, no acrostics. However, it must also be said that innovations and embellishments of the system made by Hebrew Kabbalists over the centuries were later borrowed by the latter-day medieval Renaissance Hermeticists, but it says theory. The basic premise of the esoteric study of letters is that there's a hidden affinity between and among the various aspects, shapes, sounds, meanings, and new numbers, and that this affinity extends from the realm of being or reality, the realm of the God from which it emanates, to the terrestrial realm of nature. Each letter is a true symbol of a higher principle. That is, it is not a mere arbitrary sign. This is why I was saying earlier when they were talking about, yo, these the gods and goddesses, and no, we're talking about principles. You know, this is what we call the lofty teachings. It says that is not a mere arbitrary sign of a principle, but it is in fact an essential part of manifestation of it. If the cosmos was created by means of the word, an idea common to Egyptian, Judaic, and Indo-European traditions, then the letters of the words are indeed the elements of the cosmic ordering. By consciously absorbing the patterns inherent in the system of letters, elements, the magician will have the divine metagramma to be able to create effects in the objective and the subjective universes, just as the gods do. So we showing you the science, you know, on how to manifest your thoughts, you know, from being just mere words into forms. You know, those thoughts create forms. As a man thinketh in his heart, so is it. Knowledge of the esoteric law of alphabeta allows the magician to understand the workings of other magicians, as well as provides a blueprint for effective magical operations. Again, this is Heka, the total map of four aspects of Stoicheion. In this case, the alpha might appear as shown in figure 11. And you can see that in your book. Then it talks about the number is all over and the highest aspects, because it is nearest to deity and abstract quality. Number comes closest to describing the element in its purest form. So these numbers, which are formulas, they describe, you know, these things that we're talking about in their purest form. And that's why we showed you, like how we come up with the, you know, the amorphous nanotechnology, DNA nanotechnology. And in its purest form, we showed you it go back to the divinities, you know, of God being able to demonstrate. Even though Rome tried to come and replicate and remix. It says knowledge of the numerical science and arithmosophy is a primary, because the ancient Hermetics with the Pythagoreans thought of the number as the root, and then they go further into those special measures. You know, so yeah, all this is dealing with theory, and also it goes into the practice or the practical application of this information that we're talking about here. And that's really the end, you know, outside of us, you know, just we did show the correspondence between the Egyptian phonemes, phenomes, as they call it, that were connected to certain Hebraic adaptions. That's a whole nother measure that really don't go into the Kemetic per se, just showing you how relative, relative, so to speak, these things are to each other. You know, so and we know these things come straight up out of Kemet, and they have a numerical value. In fact, we can show it right here, because we actually have, let me make sure, because I think I don't have this showing. We actually opening up the floor at this particular time. I just want to make sure that I show our family this before we do this, since we talk about the relation of the Hebrew word. They didn't just draw them few 9 that you've seen. They actually draw more than that from ancient Kemet. Make no mistake about it. I'm trying to show it to you. It's right here. And we put this together a while back, scribes. You know, we can see the Kemetic influence on this and the numerical values in it. You know, I'm going to bring all this up, a lot of this stuff up, when I demonstrate tomorrow on Sarnetta's platform. I'm going to touch on certain things. We're mainly dealing with Allah, you know, being the deity of the Bible and the Quran, and Yahweh being the same deity. But here it is right here. You know, here's, you can see one of the Kemetic paying reverence to the bull. We see the goddess here, which is really our set there on the other side. But this is where the Proto-Canaanite, you know, draw their alphabet from. This is where they got this concept, of the bull. This is Aleph. And this is very important right here. It's something that I'm exposed tomorrow. Very important, because you never see anything. And I'm gonna tap into this real quick. Is that, well, I can actually do it without even having to change my screen. But you will often see certain words that they put up in the Hebrew, and they'll put an E in the place of the A, which is not accurate, because there's no A in the alphabet. No E in the alphabet chart that is mentioned here. This letter is always presented as Aleph. It's always Aleph. You see? And this is how they cover up the name Allah with putting E there, so this would become an E and spelling out a particular word, and you'll be looking at it and won't even know you're looking at the name Allah and you calling it Allah. But that's a whole nother drawing. I'm gonna go into that, like I said, tomorrow, because I'm trying to get through this. But this is bait, and you see the numerical value there. This is actually what you would use to work with your stoic ion here. Bet. This is like a construction blueprint, looking at it from an aerial view. This is looking at it as if you were entering it. This is another drawing dealing with the various corridors, so to speak, as one going through the structure. But these are two drawings that are used, that they pull from Kemetic. Here's also another measure looking at it from the side view. And this is also that same image that was used and just turned a different way to make up the Kim. This is the Kim. You see it right there behind the Heru bird. It look like a number 7, don't it? But anyway, this portion right up here above the threshold of the door, that's where they get that concept from. And they put it in this form. This is a representation of the value of 4 in the Stoicheia. That's drawn from, those. This is He. You see them holding their arms up. We know the symbol of He. We demonstrated that in our assignment, in our homework. That's the number 5. Symbol that also come from there to make up the Hebrew. So the Hebrew, so-called Hebrew alphabets, come straight up out of Kemetic. You can see this is special measure sitting on the jet pillar. And that's actually the Atef crown that Al-Sar normally has on his head. But this is equivalent to these measures. This is, the Kemetic drawing, and this manifests in the proto-cynetic form of it. This is the actual form of what this represents. We can also see here the eyelashes or the brows, that are seen on the brother. You can see they couple them here. This Zayn, this is 7, here's another expression of a structure. This is Ket. This is the way they express it here. This is the way they express it here. Ket, which we seen also in the book of the Sister Normandy Ellis. Here's a drawing. This is actually an instrument. Sometimes they call it a banjo or whatever you want to call it, but this represents the land, Ta. And see, that's the alphabet there. That's the numeric behind it. We see this symbol is in our teaching, but this is another expression of it. This is the Proto-Canaanite aspect, the Metic aspect of it. They actually just draw from the top form that's extending down to the circle here, but it's still the same measure. We have the hand. One aspect, you see the whole arm. This is Yad. Yad means hand in the Arabic. This is the numerical value of 10. That's the Stoicheia commentary there. We see the Ka aspect here upon the head of the God man, look like my brother-in-law. But anyway, you see it here, and this is the tethering rope they look at as being equivalent to that. Here's the expression over here in the Proto-Canaanite, Proto-Cynetic aspect. We can see this would be a representation of the arms up reaching, and then they had these 2 marks in the middle. But You know, this is Ka. You know, here's another drawing here, Lam, the letter L. You see? Now they would say this was S in the Kemetic drawing that they try to put Champollion's measure in it. But we can see that this is also synonymous with the staff. Some people call it the folded cloth, you know, but you know, this is the variation of it in Proto-Canaanite. That's 30, the numerical value in that is 30. You know, we see again, Mayim mean this is the same thing here, Kemetic. This is the Proto-Sinaitic version. You can see it up here. Mim, Mayim. You know, then we have the Jed, as they call it. You know, this is serpent, but they call it Nakash. See it right there? That's the viper, Nakash. You know, they draw that. That's what they call the serpent in the book of Genesis. You have Sin, which is the fish. This is like a fish that is skinless, so to speak. You know, this is the Proto-Sinaitic, Proto-Canaanite expression of it. As opposed to the Kemetic, we have the eye, which is Ayin. You know, we have this measure. And see, the box Hebrew is still in line with this, but they have different signs that represent these things. But the gematria is still the same. The Kemetria is still the same. P, and if you notice, I'm putting the sound shifts in there. Because P and H, you know, between P and F, they are interchangeable with each other. Aleph is P and H, but it's also F, right? But that's 80. This is the open mouth, as they would like to call it. You know, this is like almost a carrying sack type of demonstration. This is Sade. You know, Sod, this is 90. This is the Proto-Canaanite. This is the Kemetic expression. That's the actual image of what's presented there. You know, this particular drawing here is with that, and then that's Qaf. That's 100 in value. You know, we have this expression here. The God man, you see him. This is the Proto-Canaanite version. This is Resh. This represents the head. You see? This also represents, you know, the S in 3 forms. Well, really 2. She, Sin, and Sheen. That's 300. And you see the mother, the breast of one mother have given you suckling her child. You know, Heru. You know, that's what that represents down there in the Proto-Sinaitic, Proto-Canaanite version of it. Then we have a symbol here that was actually taken from Louis Vuitton. You know, the T. That's one of the symbols in the Louis Vuitton thing they stole. But anyway, here's also what they would call a cross, you know, on the walls of Kemet. This is a value of 400. Again, that's T and H. And then at the bottom, what I did is showed, you know, these things beside each other. You know, and now you'll see what I'm saying when I say the box is equivalent. But this A is not a E being shared with that. So when they change this letter here out of this form, you know, and then they make it a letter E, that's erroneous. And they trying to hide things from your family. You know, be aware. They actually got the word Bismillah in the Hebrew language, in the name of Allah. Right there. You got our Hebrew family running around here talking about that Allah is different in the Hebrew than he is from the Arabic. You know, how disingenuous. I'm talking about over 100 times this thing in many different various ways it's mentioned. We're going to expose this tomorrow, hopefully to bridge the gap and stop our people from fighting, you know, over this information, because that's what we're really trying to do. But anyway, you know, it shows here pictograms, Egyptian hieroglyphics. They get a date of 1859 BC, right? See, it says biblical Hebrew, the English alphabet. Hebrew is the first and oldest alphabet is what they're trying to say here. You know, but really, that is really to be given to what they call in Paleo Hebrew, which is really Phoenician, which really derives from hieratic. But we'll get into that later. So anyway, so it's just based on who's describing what's going on. And everybody want to take credit, for all the information. But see, then they had the Mosaic hieroglyphic Hebrew alphabet, which is where they begin to use these pictorials relative to the Paleo Hebrew. You see what I'm saying? And then this right here is what they call square Hebrew. This is actually more modern. We see this more, but this ain't the original. This is the original that was derived from the Kemetic aspect. These pictures being compared to, these symbols, which later unfold in the letters, are older than Champollion's measure, but they don't mean the same thing his mean. Actually, certain signs in here don't even exist in Champollion chart and vice versa. So this chart would have been older than Champollion, but you don't see Kemetic people talking about this. And in fact, like I said, they say these are pseudo hieroglyphs. But that's a whole nother measure. We ain't got to go into that. So the main thing is I went through all of this in the proper order and showed you what these things represented a few minutes ago. And I showed you how they was adopted into, in different various forms of the Proto-Sinaitic. They might have been changed like this door sign. I showed it to you. Notice they done changed it a different way, turned it a different direction. See it? Same thing. Same symbol here. They got them from Kemet. They got the Unicode beside them where you can know where they was drawn from. Sinai, the head symbol. See it right here? See that there? Yeah. We can't make this stuff up. So they definitely, the Hebrews, or the Canaanites, as they were called at the time, definitely got these symbols from Kemet. And we can see, like I showed you in each one of them, the Stoicheion, Gematria. This wasn't on the manifest when Joseph was there. Here's another chart in the same way, but showing the variations of it through the different new kingdoms and middle kingdoms in the Iron Age, so to speak, on how these things took different variations and forms to become different expressions. See, now right here, see how they put that A left there, E? No, that's not proper. It's an A. That symbol there is always an A. It's never an E. You see, and that's confusing. So again, like I say, look, it says projected Proto-Hebrew original letters. If you don't know no better, you're going, oh, them hieroglyphic. Yeah, they is hieroglyphic, but they ain't the one that you know. The Middle Egyptian hieroglyphic exemplar sign list. This is showing the actual Egyptian expression. See how they tried to put the Hebrew before the Kemetic. So this was created by a Kemetic person. I mean, a Hebrew person. They want you to believe that these came from this when it's really the other way around. They originated their alphabet from the original pictures. Whoever produced this chart, it's a modern chart, we can look at it. But they wasn't around when Joseph was around. So Joseph had not seen this particular script. Joseph was dealing with what we call contemplation and meditation. So I'm going to stop right there. And we're going to go further into this, and we'll put our, assignment out there to the Moors. We're going to deal with creating, our own chart of 10 based upon, just like I asked y'all questions, y'all can produce this, just put the number beside it. And we're going to have our family come up with their Stoicheion and put these things in a tree of life form similar to this. Let me show you. Of life. And we're going to do it from a Kemetic aspect. Let's see. Okay. Let's see. I'm trying to make sure I pull up the proper chart that I'm trying to show y'all, because we've been talking about this. So you get the example when I was telling you that these things represent the letters between the branches. Okay, that's a grand drawing right there. Prime example right there. Okay, so let me open this up. Present the screen. We're going to share it. And there it is right there. Share that. Okay. And here it is. This is your schismatic chart of the tree of life. And if you notice, you can see the stoicheion in between these drawings. You know, and they're numbered here. That's 22 letters. You know, we know on our aspect, we're going to deal with the hieratic. That's a whole nother measure. So, you know, these are the letters and the numbers between the branches of the tree of life, you know, which really represent you. You are the tree of life. But that's a whole nother drawing. These are your charts that represent, and this is why I say you are the tree of life. See how the tree is on the body? Knowledge, discipline, love, and kindness, compassion. And all these things represent certain measures, you know. So this concept of the tree of life didn't originate from those who come up with the teachings of Judaism. Don't let nobody tell you that, because in the book, you know, dealing with the Hermetic magic, it tell you really all came out of Kemetic. The Grand Secretary of the State pointed out earlier when we was dealing with the 9. You got the 9 that manifests, and then the 10 that come into that, and that's dealing with your tree. You see what I'm saying? It's all based upon what it is. So what I'm saying is these principles existed way before Judaism came into existence, even though they may mention the Ennead, you know, in the way that they use. That's a Greek term, but the 9 deities manifesting and then life forms coming forth from that existed in Kemet before it existed in Greek, before it existed in Judaism, before it existed in any other language. This just became a universal chart that represent, you know, the same principles, you know, across the board, so to speak. You know, we can't make this stuff up, people. You know, and they have various different drawings on this measure. In this one here, they actually sound the letters out. Lamed, Yod, Tet, Ayin, Nun. You know, these are the principles that are working between the branches, you know, within the universe. Whether you look at it from a macrocosmic degree or a microcosmic degree. They even give one example of the tree as it is above, so below. See the Ayin Sof, Ayin Sof R. See? One that is manifesting that which is above and that which is below. White mean purity, supreme mean God, God being the ruler of the land, huh? Look at that. Astral body, the mental body, vital body, physical body. Hear ye now, ye cherubim, ye seraphim, ye angels, and ye men. Huh? Intuition and telepathy. That's the astral and the mental body. You see? Vital body, that's your angel right there. Physical body, that's the man. We can't make this stuff up, fam. And this also deals with, you know, understanding the 9 orders of the angels. So like that's the drawing, you know, at the end of the day, you know, what we are trying to show our people. They even give a chart similar to our ancestors, the Seer people. You know, when they talk about their drawing, the Seer people have a chart similar to this that represents the world. As it is above, so below. Look at that. So these symbols, when we get into the geometry of them, the shapes that they form, geometry, you know, when we talk about cymatic frequency, things that express itself in nature, you know, the different shapes of flowers and different things. All this is dealing with different manifestations of gematria. And if we get into the math, we will see how they connect to each other. You know, how many symbols and shapes you can find that relate to the 5? You know, the 1. It's powerful demonstration. So I'm gonna stop right there, and we're gonna open up the floor for our scribes, starting with our Grand National Secretary of the State. Islam, goddess.
Islam, gratitude,
Islam
having
is
already, praise Allah, having already risen, giving praise and honor where due. This has been a powerful class, Dr. Shahid. definitely much gratitude, and also taking us through the exercises so that we can see how all these things connect. And I tell you, definitely got to deal with the playback on this. Looking forward to the assignment, but this is such a broad and infinite demonstration, and I knew that we were going to have to deal with Hebrew as well, because everything is interconnected. And gratitude again in reference to everything coming out of Kemet, our ancestors and forefathers, and being able to get through the remix, like just a simple thing as, okay, you can tell who was putting the chart out in reference to the sequence of the information that they were bringing forth, putting Hebrew first before, Kemethian, to try to give the appearance, and this is how we are able to discern truth from falsehood, so by having the actual truth and foundation of what our ancestors brought and left for us. So also, which really stood out in reference to Tho or Tahuti, Hermes Trismegistus, things of that nature, same information during different times and climes, so gratitude for the blessing and the research, and definitely again have to process, so that I can come forth adequately with this assignment. Peace and love.
Peace, love, and law at all costs. Islamism without the schism. Gratitude for that Magic Grand Secretary of the State. If you look right there in our Egyptian temple scribe degree in the red fez degree of cherubim and seraphim, set up the way that our prophet set it up, in his convention posters, if you look closely, you can see a tree of life there. The way that we set it up. If you look in the background, you see the prophet sitting at the top. You see the eye of Allah being there, the drawing. The prophet is really working from the plane of soul, is what that's symbolic to. We see the eye of Allah. We see the crescent on each side. With a crescent on one side, a circle 7 on the other side. We see the hand, clasp of unity, the fez. All of those represent different principles, and really an expression of our Egyptian adept expression of a tree of life. But yet there are underlying principles, that we will find if we go into my page, Mathino's Archives, where we break all of it down, and it actually is a key to being able to unlock certain books, like that particular measure. You can work with the book of Medu by Ra Anefa Amen, because I draw from those sources. We also have what we call the 42 Path of Moorish Wisdom, where we show that we are holding the stations. Those who hold the stations in Act 1 represent different principles or variations of the tree of life, as it relates to us as Moorish American Muslims, and it leads us back to the destination of oneness with the Creator, the great God. So signs and symbols of a conscious mind in men and women of understanding. But let us call for, our other two scribes now, Sister Dendra and Brother Marvin Nathaniel by Islam.
Islam, gratitude. As the goddess said, this has been a powerful class. I kind of that expressed pretty much everything that was on my mind. Thoroughly enjoyed it. Definitely got to go back and listen to the playback. And bottom line for me, when I just think about everything came from Kemet and everything came from us, what I just put in my mind, if we was the first one here, it only stands to reason. I mean, how can you think something can come from somewhere else when we basically are the blueprint? I mean, we were the first one here. So whatever you come up with, it had to come from us. Now, granted, you changed some stuff and and that we put out there. But with the keen eye that we have, we can even see how you done covered up our teaching. But like I said, bottom line is, if we were the first one here, then who else is it going to come from other than us? Islam, gratitude, great class.
And gratitude for that straightforward measure, Sister Curtis Bay. We give honors to you for that. And very powerful, like you said. It all came from us. Like even the concept when the people talk about, they don't talk about chakras in Kemet, y'all foolish when you say some ignorance like that, because the principles existed in Kemet before they came forth from the Hindu Kushite people. The 7, that deal with self-mastery is mentioned in Kemet way before it was mentioned in Hinduism. So all of these different teachings or different variations are there, right there in Kemet. Islam, Brother Elvis Bay.
Islam, body, and I'm muted before I realize it. Yes, sir. Gratitude, yes, Dr. Marvin Elvis Bay, praise and honor have been given. And this is the connecting of the dots, so to speak. This is, when I look at it, this is like when we first embarked upon this journey, in this class, as we can see, we were told that everything come from us. Now we can verify how everything come from us. This is beautiful. This is powerful. And I can't be more grateful for being a part of this, to realize that our ancestors is the key to life. To this life and the life before and evermore to be. And gratitude, God, man, for all you do. Gratitude. Peace and love.
Sir, and gratitude and peace and love. And then going out, just to give me a little extra small measure, I'm going to show you something real quick and show you why this is relevant. Because many of our people don't get it. Right here, when we come into the concept, like I was speaking, I was just showing this to you, and I was saying this is really a tree of life expression here, veiled behind the symbolism that the prophet actually brought. So Prophet Noble Drew Ali had some grand understanding. The only thing that's here that, the prophet didn't put in there, and he gave it to it from the soul plane, just like he did everything else, is the symbol, here, which is our adept jewel. He brought the symbols, and we brought it forth in expression of everything he brought. But I'm talking about in the way he expressed that chart on his charters that he passed out. These are the symbols that he put here, and he put them here in the same order, which is really a veiled tree of life. You see him manifested here after everything, standing, before a stream of purity, representing his knowledge and wisdom that flowed forth, so to speak. Again, this is symbolic to him working from the plane of the soul. This is the macro government, so to speak, and we demonstrating the microcosm of what it is he brought. So this is a powerful demonstration. You see Aya here, Aya of Kemet, equated with Ta in most cases. So all this symbolism is very powerful. But when we go deeper into it, though, like I said, I showed you how I created this, and people think that we just be doing this just to create some fancy artwork. But these things really represent principles that are, veiled to unfold. Notice it's 42 paths of Moorish wisdom, but really it's 43. This 43rd really ain't a path, it's the destination. This is what's hidden behind. This is the map, behind what you've seen above. You see? And we can see how our chairman is one in us, the prophet is in us, the grand sheik is in us. We have a grand sheik in us. We got a prophet in us, working in us from the plane of soul now. National Assistant of Grand Chief, the National Secretary of Moorish America, working in us, Assistant National Grand Mufti, working in us. This is the tree of life now. These are different branches. It's just built. This is our separate. You know, we created this. I think this thing about 15 years old now. People look at it but don't know what they're looking at. National Grand Mufti. You know, we got the Assistant National Grand Mufti, Square. You know, we got the Acts, as we spoke of, National Grand Mufti. Then we got the Brotherhood, you know, and Sisterhood of Swift Angels, you know, which represent the compass. So we are the ones that are drawing a circle around ourselves, keeping each other within the bounds of righteousness. We are the ones that are keeping our conduct square as a result of this knowledge that we have, you know, and communicating, reciprocal help, mutual obligation. Then we have the divine minister in general, representation of the prophet and his grand body, salvation, the line that unites the divinity of the matter too. And then we had a national treasurer of Moorish America, the chisel and the saw. And boy, when she come through, she be cutting something up and she'll chisel something out real quick. But anyway, you know, the Kemetic adept manual and the use of the carpenter's tools, you know, and then we learn like what we are told here about these things. Tell you exactly how to use your tools and how they are used. You know, in the Comedian mystery system, this is from the brother Ra Unefa Amin. You can use this chart and compare it. Also, the prophet, you know what I mean? You know, again, like we just went through it, Kemetically veiled, Seker, you know, chairman, sheep, assistant grand sheep, you know, grand mufti, you know, grand secretary of the state, station. These are stations. Remember, I told y'all how the Neteru manifest. These are stationed through us. See, right here, Anpu, which is in the realm of Sebek. You know, again here, we have Het Heru, you know, or Set, you know, and then the manifestation again of Get. So all of these drawings, we got the breakdown right here to them. But if you notice in the teachings of Ra Anefa Amin, he ain't dealing with no alphabets, you know, in the way that people are taught, but he called it Medu Neta, the language of God. Through this chart, our beloved family created, the language of God is being expressed. This is cosmology here. That's why this is important. So like we said, these principles were in existence in Kemet way before Kemetic birth of the Hebrew Kabbalah or Kemetic birth of the Greek Kabbalah. I'm saying that because all of it come from Kemet. That's why I say Kemetic birth. You see what I'm saying? So when somebody tell you that Kemites didn't teach Kabbalah, they don't know what they're talking about. They may have not expressed it as the word Kabbalah, but even if we were to go into the word, we can find those elements or the constituents of the elements in Kemet. The Ka in the Ba, the Allah, all that you can find in Kemet. But that's a whole nother measure. You know, we're going to let our scribes bring it all out. Like I said, right here, you know, then when we get into the 7, the chakras, you know, they also would have existed in Kemet. Ba, Ku, Sekhem, Ab, Sahu, Kaabit, Kab, they may have not been called chakras, or we can say Shukara. You know, they may have not been called that directly Kemetically, but these principles, they were there. They were there. You see, and that's what I was demonstrating there. You know, when I put all that together, all these things like they call the Kabbalion now, Hermetic principles, they come from Kemet. They was Kemetic before they became Hermetic. You know, the principles here that deal with mentalism, correspondence, vibration, polarity, rhythm, cause and effect, gender. All that come up out of Kemet before it was remixed. You understand? We got to give our people props what due, and our prophet brought all of these same teachings in our Moorish Holy Quran. And if you study them well, you will find that these same teachings of the tree of life is in the Moorish Holy Quran. The same teaching dealing with chakras, or even the nadis, different teachings that we see in different cultures, they were in Kemet, family. We can't make it no plainer than this. You heard me talking earlier, about the different aspects of it. Look at this. This is all dealing with cosmology. The 4 Kemetic planes of manifestation, before and after the fall of man. Nut, Kuk, and Kut, Ab and Ka, Kab and Kabit. 2, 4, 6, 8. That's your 8 right there. And Altum is actually at the head of this particular drawing. He the 9. How do we express that in the Kemetic? The Moorish Holy Quran, the apparatus of spirit plane, the apparatus of thought plane, soul plane, and the manifest plane. Same thing. Murakaba, the divine apparatus of the Moorish Adam. We know what we're doing when we put this together, family. Tree of life, veil right here. 5 above, 5 separate below. Come on, man. Let's stop playing with ourselves. Goodness gracious. It don't get no plainer than the truth. We know what we were doing. Remember that? It was talking about the Big Dipper earlier. There it go. We know that's the constellation of Musketti. So, yeah, it's in there. Like Ragu, there it is again. The tree of life, which is man himself. Like I said, it existed in Kemet before it existed anywhere else. Can't nobody dispute that. Only a fool would try to. You know what I mean? But yeah. Gratitude. Let me stop right here. All right, Sister Dendra, you can take us on up out of here. That's enough for today.
Islam. January 15, 1929. A warning from the Prophet to be read at every meeting. I hereby inform all citizens that they must end all radical agitating speeches while at work, in their homes, on the streets. We are for peace and not destruction. Stop flashing your cards or your opinions. It causes confusion. Remember, your call is for your salvation. Failure to obey these orders will be a severe consequence. We are for love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, and when these principles are violated, justice must then take its course. Any citizen or group of citizens who hold malicious feelings toward the government or the prophet or violates the divine covenant of the Moorish movement will receive their reward from Allah for their unjust deeds. All true Moors will and must obey the law as laid down to them by the prophet. If they lose confidence in their prophet, they should turn in their card and button, cease wearing their turban and fez, and return to the state where the prophet found you. This is a holy and divine movement founded by the prophet Noble Drew Ali, and if the prophet is not right, the government is not right. The prophet, therefore, is sending out the divine plea to all Moorish Americans that they do their part in protecting their prophet and the government. This is an everlasting movement founded by the prophet through the will of Allah to redeem his people from their sinful ways by the order of Prophet Noble Drew Ali. A holy covenant of the age-added nations. Ye are the children of one father, provided for by his care, and the breast of one mother is given you suck. Let the bonds of affection therefore unite thee with thy brothers, that peace and happiness may dwell in thy father's house. And when ye separate in the world, remember the relation that bindeth you to love and unity, and prefer not a stranger before thy own blood. If thy brother is in adversity, assist him. If thy sister is in trouble, forsake her not. So shall the fortunes of thy father contribute to the support of his whole race, and his care be continued to you all, in your love to each other. Islam. This meeting has been officially adjourned according to Act 2, the Circle 7, and love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. Go in peace, Moors. Islam. Great class.
Great class.
Islam without the
Great
schism.
class. Gratitude, family.
Gratitude, peace, and
Gratitude,
love.
Moorish King. Y'all know we building with the building blocks of creation. Goodness gracious.
Sure.
Islam.
I bet it makes sense now, don't it, Moors?
Absolutely.
Yeah, we don't make it make sense. Islam.
Make it make sense.
That's right. Islamism without the schism. You gotta put in the work. like they say,
We
right?
definitely do.
I'll
Yes.
see you in Sunday school.
Yes, sir, we will. And want to give honor, speaking of Sunday school, all the family that attended, this earlier primer, so to speak, for it. And y'all come on in.
That's right.
Noble
Yes.
Brian, Cena Renee, who else up there? Tarif Bay, the Human Thought, Marvin Edward, all y'all. We give honors to everybody. Sister Sakina Rob, we give honors to you as well, Goddess. Uncle Jet Sanev, K Glover L. Who else? Michael Mobay, all y'all in here. We love you.
Oh, got a nice
Like
crowd.
our chairman. Yeah, they in there. Our chairman say Islam isn't without the schism.
Islam. Peace and love, family.
Peace and love.
Not just kidding.